Where does the United States Constitution prevent the head of the executive branch, who's created by the Constitution, the President of the United States, who was elected by you through the Electoral College, who swore to uphold the Constitution at the time and the place he was expected to do it? He's upholding the Constitution, his campaign promises. Where does it say in the Constitution? Where? That a President of the United States cannot reorganize aspects of the federal government. It doesn't. So in this Constitution, I ask you this question. Federal district judges don't exist. They're created. Let me ask you an even more fundamental question. We have what's called judicial review. You're hearing these legal analysts all over the place. Oh, I'm a professor. Oh, I'm a former federal prosecutor. Oh, I'm just a stupid host on CNN and MSNBC, and I know everything. And what do they keep saying? They keep using authoritarian, anti-democratic, he's running a coup, the same propaganda, the same crap as before.
Want to get it off your chest? You're in the right place. They accuse this show of being run by boobs. Well, let me tell you about us boobs. We're real and we're spectacular. Want politics and fun sprinkled with a lot of laughs? Heard in every state in the Union and 1,000 cities around the world. We just finished 16 years of broadcast excellence, now in our 17th year. The Dave Weinbaum Show is streaming live all over the world. Other than Trump's Liberation Day on April the 2nd, that seems to have caused the markets to drop like a gutted whale. Or one of my old guests, Laura Loomer, flying on Air Force One, convincing Trump to fire 10 NSC operatives for being anti-Semitic, and a sabotage threat to Trump's presidency. This is small potatoes compared to the unconstitutional federal judges who have launched torpedoes against Trump. But our Constitution and our three-legged republic, these judges who are not recognized by the Constitution are a threat to conquer the country by taking over the executive branch. Most of this has come from Judge Boasberg, a leftist jurist who ordered Trump to return all the criminal aliens sent back to their home countries, El Salvador, Haiti, Venezuela, Colombia, Mexico, and others, many of whom have been welcomed by the Biden administration's subversion of 21 million of these illegal aliens, and the Democrats' effort to sponsor criminal aliens who rape, murder, and sex traffic, all on the taxpayers' paychecks. There's 30,000 to 50,000 children missing, and we're supposed to listen to a federal judge who has no written orders to bring these animals back to America? The only way we can fight this is to go with a flawed SCOTUS chief, Judge John Roberts. If they rule against Trump, if they rule against him, proven criminal Judge Boasberg should be punished by being forced into the jails of Venezuela, where the worst of the worst are incarcerated. And Trump then can flip his middle finger to the Supremes and keep doing exactly what he's lawfully elected to do. Then maybe our constitutional right to free speech will also recognize the right of us to vote and have our votes counted.
But now they're saying all these things he's doing are illegal and unconstitutional. You're at the right place at the right time. You're with me. Now, let me explain this. Number one, not a single one of these departments is in the Constitution. Number two, this fourth branch of government with 2.5 million civilian employees is not in the Constitution. None of it. Number three, judicial review. This is really going to upset people. Forget about Marbury versus Madison, which is the big judicial review case that essentially says the Supreme Court and therefore the lower courts have authority to make judgments over whether or not a law is constitutional or not. That was a Supreme Court decision, Marbury versus Madison. That is not in the Constitution. I'm talking about the Constitution. I'm not talking about court decisions. The Constitution. There's no judicial review. So it's an implied power. It's a necessary power. Somebody's got to make these decisions. But if it's an implied power, it's not an affirmative, granted, authoritative power in the Constitution under Article 3 for the one court they created, the Supreme Court, then how is it that all these hundreds and hundreds of trial federal courts created by Congress and the president under a Judiciary Act, how is it that they have so much power over the executive branch? They don't. If you believe in the Constitution.
Okay, we're on the show. I want to welcome my beautiful wife, who is matching terrifically. Brown is a good color.
Thank you.
And black.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Will you be wearing your coat the whole
I don't
show
know.
or just part of it?
I don't know. Why, are you hot?
No, it's making me hot looking at, though.
Hot looking?
Yeah.
You're hot looking, though.
No.
Okay, I get that. No, I agree. I have to agree that she's hot. All right, and my protege over there, J.P. Maxwell, who is the producer of the show. We got Rick Henderson up in Salem, who's recently had some operations, and we're praying for Rick to recover. And he is he's got some bad leg problems, and he does all the clips and the bits and stuff like that. And we've got coming up, we've got great guests. We have J.J. Bradshaw coming up at 8:10, Rabbi Moshe at 8:40. Lots to do with Rabbi Moshe. Don Mayhew at 9:30, Tom Haviland at 10, and Jeff Zink at 10:30. We've got a full show. So if you want to contact the show, call 573-578-2700 and get it off your chest. Okay? Or
you can also reach us on Facebook, X, Rumble, and YouTube. You can make comments, and we will try to catch as many of those as possible during the show.
And we're podcast after the show. We
Yep.
go on where? We get on all
anywhere
these places.
You can find podcasts. We're talking about, iHeart Radio. We're talking Spotify, any podcast location. Shortly after we go off the air later on this afternoon, it'll be available in what they call the podcast world.
Yeah, on YouTube. And shockingly, we've become stars on YouTube and TikTok. And TikTok is it's like on board to be sold like today to a bunch of American people, or at least in partnership with China, which is possibly going to be one of the things to straighten out our stock market a little bit. Trump has announced all of his tariffs, and the market reacted extremely poor. And this happened back in 1987 under Ronald Reagan. And guess what? It took about a year. I know, because I was invested at the time. I didn't sell anything. And a year later, it was all up again. Now, I don't know if this is going to take that long or if it's going to be permanent. Usually, we have no history of this being permanent, do we? So the odds are that it's going to come back. Trump kind of knows what he's doing, and I think that's a great case to keep your stock. Now I have this gentleman looking at me, kind of, and he's looking good, by the way. This guy is 256 years old, and he goes back to the Revolutionary times. He was friends with Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and Ben Franklin. Used to pick up. Well, probably he was a little young at that time, but he was probably helping them scope out these pioneer women. Please welcome all the way from Rolla, Missouri, Jeffrey Bradshaw.
Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, JJ. What you got for me today?
Oh my God, we're drowning in this stuff, Dave. It's coming so fast. Love Donald J. Trump. He can throw a fastball and a curveball better than anybody in MLB. You mentioned Laura Loomer. You know, you and I haven't heard about Laura Loomer for a while. She's been kind of laying low. She still is publishing things, columns.
Yeah.
But she ended up on Air Force One and whispering in Donald J. Trump's ear about some folks that weren't exactly on board with his policies in the national security agencies, and he ran them off.
10 of them.
What I read about that, though, was that these folks were leakers. And, you know, the federal government leaks like a sieve.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about everything, even though they're sworn to secrecy. They have security clearances, but they leak. And it is my understanding that they were fired for leaking. Good. Trump doesn't mess around. You really want to go against my agenda, you're out of here.
What about Mike Waltz? You know, the guy that brought that Goldberg guy onto the call. I mean, he wasn't supposed to do that, was he?
That was a terrible mistake on his part, and I'm sure he was taken to the woodshed by Trump and said, you know, you're going to get a spanking if you keep this sort of stuff up. So Waltz is still a member of the team, so apparently his value is still high. But I'm not a betting man. But if I was a betting man, I would bet you a nickel that things like this will never, ever happen again in this administration. I'm sure these folks have been admonished to toe the line.
I'm thinking that this guy's got a 20% chance of staying. I don't think he can keep him. You can't trust a guy like that. I'm sorry, but you know, but that was look what these other people had to go through in that Senate hearing.
Yeah,
and look at how that was a smear on Donald Trump. And this guy started talking, and I'm sure it was in collusion with Waltz and maybe some Democrats. You can't find a better case to get rid of somebody, in my opinion.
I don't disagree with that, and maybe the guy's going to go, but I do believe in my heart of hearts this was an innocent mistake that just got out of control. We'll see, won't we? You know, cabinet picks are known to not last very long in any administration. If you look at
this guy's in charge of national security, the whole nation's security, and he can't figure out that you don't put a Trump-hating journalist in a meeting that's overly supposedly secure.
You know, when you're at that level, you have no choice but to deal with journalists. But these are set in two camps. There are the folks that are on the inside and those that are on the outside. I think they pulled this guy in as a mistake. But okay, we all do make mistakes, and whether Trump has forgiven him or not, we'll see. He may end up going. Whoever Trump chooses to pick, I hope is stellar, like the rest of his cabinet. You know, speaking of Trump and the Laura Loomer incident, which I thought was just so good, Chuck Grassley, Republican from Iowa, and Maria Cantwell, Democrat from Washington, have introduced a bill called the Trade Review Act, which would limit the president's tariff power, would require notice be given to the Congress and ostensibly congressional approval. Now, Dave, this is going to go nowhere. This is nothing more than publicity. It is well within the president's purview to establish tariffs and has been since the establishment of our country.
Right.
So these congressmen can talk a lot about it. Maybe they'll get a few people to sign on to it. But the fact is, this will never pass the House and would never pass the Senate, and would end up having to be signed by Donald J. Trump, who's certainly not going to sign a poison bill like that. So this is nothing but theater. Chuck Grassley, though, it surprised me a little bit. He's kind of a quiet sort of guy, and when he came up with this thing in conjunction with a Democrat, it surprised me a little bit until I digested it and realized it's nothing but political theater, not going to go anywhere. Can we talk about our media for a moment?
Sure.
In the 1960s and 70s, the CBS program 60 Minutes was considered the gold standard in television investigative journalism. They actually did some good work then. And over the years, they have turned into a left-leaning mouthpiece for the Democrats and have gotten more and more liberal. The other day, Leslie Stahl on 60 Minutes was interviewing a Hamas hostage named Keith Siegel. And Leslie, now understand, these questions are written for her. She has a choice of what she wants to ask, but these are all written on a teleprompter. So, Leslie, you didn't come up with this by yourself, although it's stupid enough that you could come up with it by yourself. She said, and I quote, "Do you think they starved you, or did they just not have food?" End quote. Leslie, you're getting as bad as AOC. When you open your mouth, stupid falls out of it. Perhaps you should consider retiring. You're talking to someone who has endured physical and emotional trauma like you cannot imagine, and you ask a stupid question like that. Of the millions of questions that you could have asked that were actually relevant and would have ended up with a reply that makes some sense, you chose that, Leslie.
Well, Leslie, she shut down Trump in a interview with him before the 2020 race about Biden, being being protected by the media and being his son was getting money out of Russia and Ukraine both. And stuff like that. Says, there's no record of that. Was Leslie. There's no record of this. That's just not true. She immediately took Biden's side. And from that day on, how do you recognize this person as proving later on that this was actually going on? Why does she still have a job?
Good question. She claims to be a journalist, as do all of these folks. And, at that level, she's got a big old staff who's doing the work for her. All she is the mouthpiece. Leslie, your staff is not doing a very good job if you consider that you've been wrong on every issue for almost a decade. For you to protect Joe Biden, I mean, come on. The man on the street, like me, could tell that this guy was seriously impaired. And you're the one that's defending him, saying, yeah, he's okay. He's sharp as a tack. Give me a break. Give me a break.
Well, we wouldn't have any media at all if they all got together and said, yeah, we lied about Joe to keep him in office. Because, it was treasonous to see what he did and how he did it. And I'm not sure he's even cognizant of the fact that he did it. That other people from the Obama administration who became his aides were actually doing the scut work for him and for Barack Obama.
Dave, I think treason has been committed within that organization. Probably not Joe, because Joe wasn't cognizant of anything. Joe was in a fog, lucky to find the bathroom to change his depends. But somebody in that organization certainly did commit treason, in my opinion. Will it ever see the light of day? I doubt it. At least these people are gone. They do not hold positions of authority anymore in the executive.
Well, they left over a bunch of these judges. that I'm talking about today. And these judges who think they can also take over the presidency, the powers of the president, and yelling at Donald Trump to bring back these murdering animals that are in these other countries without a written order, mind you. Okay, there's no written order, and they're in the air. Bring them back. That'll stick a
Actually, until it has
in his house.
until a written order has been written and registered with the court clerk, all this is talk, Dave. It's talk within a courtroom.
Where somebody has now stalled the final decision to where it's got to go to the Supreme Court. So in other words, we're talking about time, and there's more judges piling on. This has not happened like anything, and they're all unconstitutional. All these federal judges, it's not in the Constitution. Can't find it.
I think in the end, the Supremes will decide in favor of Donald Trump. It's a matter of when will that happen. You know, the Supremes will only take on so many cases in a calendar year. And all of these are being presented to them as emergency cases, which I suppose by rights they are. I think in the end, the Supremes are going to vote with the Constitution because that is their mandate, whether they are liberal or conservative. They're required to read the Constitution and abide by it. And nowhere, like you said, are federal district courts even mentioned. And Article 2 of the Constitution gives very broad powers to the executive branch, and nowhere does it mention that those powers will be limited by some appointed federal district judge. So that's going to get thrown out. The Supremes are going to kick that right out.
Well, if they don't, Trump is going to ignore them, and what are they going to do? He'll take his presidential powers and maybe arrest a few of those people because they're not following the Constitution, and they are creating havoc and maybe even treason against America.
And the Civil War starts at about that time.
Maybe. Well, what happened in the Civil War with Lincoln and the judges and all the it was almost a replica of what's going on. He ignored them and told me he was going to ignore them. Delano Roosevelt ignored the you can't get any far more left leaning than him. Can you?
Not much, no. Our buddy Chuck Schumer, who is quietly headed towards the bottom of the sea, did another stupid thing the other day. Chuck, I think you're addled, and every time you open your mouth, stupid falls out of it. Mike Lee, senator from Utah, introduced a thing called the SAVE Act, Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, which would require that to vote in a federal election, you will be required to show an approved photo ID.
Right.
And ostensibly that would apply to the states as well, because ultimately the states fall in line behind federal. Chuck Schumer, this is in front of the whole Congress. Chuck Schumer said, we'll filibuster that. Yeah. We're not going to have that. We don't need that in this country. Chuck, have you read the Constitution? I suspect not. I couldn't believe it when those words fell out of his mouth. I thought, okay, son, you've hit a brand new low. You really have, and I thought you'd gone as low as you possibly could. My Lord, our Senate.
The leader of the Democratic Party, an anti-Semitic Jew.
This is the head of the Democrat Party in the Senate, at least. Speaking of that, and the House of Representatives, Hakeem Jeffries, 23-hour speech. And it was a 23-hour speech about nothing. He could have been reading War and Peace.
Hold it. It was another guy. It wasn't Hakeem. It was
Cory Booker.
Cory Booker.
Oh, Cory Booker. I'm so sorry.
Right.
I got my liberals confused. They all look alike to me.
Don't say this. Don't say they all look alike, because it's not true.
One liberal looks like any other liberal to me.
Okay.
They're just
Well, they sound like
mud
each
in
other,
the
that's for
wet.
sure.
So, okay, Cory Booker stands up there and blathers
Yeah.
23 hours.
Right.
Thankfully, I didn't watch all of that because that would be 23 hours of my life wasted that I could never, ever get back again.
You were actually planning to listen to that?
Certainly not. I saw the beginnings of this rant and thought, this is going to be a waste of time. And it absolutely was. He could have stood up there and read the chapters out of War and Peace, and we would have gotten about the same result. This was 23 hours of nothing.
I'll tell you who's really pissed off.
Me?
Ted Cruz. No, just not just you or me. Ted Cruz was pissed off. You know why?
Tell me.
He passed Cruz's speech by 2 hours. He said that. I heard him say that. I was laughing at it, but
all right. So we're all guilty of this, okay,
yeah.
Dave? But this is wasting valuable time that could actually be spent debating issues that have some merit. And instead, we're playing political theater. This is the United States version of kabuki, the Japanese very regimented plays. This is garbage. This is not what the founding fathers had in mind. They expected people to be responsible, and people that are responsible will debate issues, ultimately come up with compromises, or maybe not, but at least they will address the issues. And these folks will not do that. And our Congress has not done that for decades. Consider the budget bills that they're supposed to come up with. And instead, we end up with one continuing resolution after another, and porculus bills that have so much garbage in them. No wonder we're in an inflationary situation.
Well, and they keep defending it, though. They keep defending it. They're saying, look what Trump's doing to the economy. And they don't have an answer. They don't have, well, what did you do?
Yeah.
Tell us what you did that was so great. How come we can't even buy eggs anymore, but under Trump you can buy eggs?
How about that?
Yeah.
Let's talk about tariffs as part of my closing. You remember seeing this thing on the board?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
The reciprocal tariffs.
Yeah.
Now, last night, I read an article by a supposedly economist in the Wall Street Journal, and he wrote a rather long article about how these tariffs are an absolute disaster. Yeah. How the stock market took a 5 or 6% correction as a result of this. How Apple lost billions of dollars. What the guy missed is this. Our economy, now not our stock market, okay, but our economy as a whole is massive. You don't turn that economy in a short amount of time. That's for the stock market. The stock market goes up and down. It can turn pretty quickly. The bond market, not so much. Our economy as a whole, not so much at all. It takes months for the reaction to any stimulus to occur. Now, what's Trump doing with these reciprocal tariffs? You and I both know this guy is a hell of a negotiator.
Oh, yeah.
And he is getting their attention by these tariffs. And at some point, other economies are going to realize they're going to take a hit as a result of this. And what can we do to ameliorate this problem? What can we do? We're going to negotiate with Trump and come up with some middle ground.
Sure.
This is nothing more than a negotiation tactic. And my God, anybody that knows anything about Donald Trump, this is the way the man operates.
Well, actually,
the way he operated in the real estate market in New York State.
Actually, he's been quite fair with these people. They're getting, they're tariffing us like 60%, and we're tariffing them like maybe 40%. He's always giving them the upper hand anyways. They're just not used to having it all.
Our economy is massive, Dave, and we can afford those hits. This Wall Street Journal economist, and I'm putting the economist in quotes because I doubt this guy has a degree in economics. If he did, he wouldn't have said what he said. He's talking about the possibility of recession as a result of this. Well, of course, recession is always a possibility.
Yeah.
However, I expect there will be a much more global recession before recession hits here. Those weaker economies, and there are many of them out there, will reel from these tariffs. They're going to take a hit as a result of this. Perhaps they will be in a recession. I think ours will be soft if there's any at all. And frankly, I think within a few months' time, they will have negotiated all of this out where the tariffs are not an entity anymore. But you're going to have to take that hit in the short term. It's kind of like the egg prices. Did I not eat eggs when they were $8 a dozen? No, I bit the bullet and ate them anyway.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. Deal with it.
Deal with it, right?
Yeah. What do you have?
Well, I don't know, but I have a joke about that too. Did you hear about the man busted for stealing a dozen eggs in his underwear? Needless to say, his breakfast was scrambled.
Oh my, Dave! It's another one.
I had that. You know what? I had that set for later, but I thought that was. You brought the subject up. I'm sorry.
Dave, you are known for groaners, and that one was. Good job. I'm surprised I didn't hear crickets as a result of it.
Anything.
Looks like JP's dropping down on his job here.
No, he has a cricket limit. He's got a tariff on crickets.
Good job. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, there. Are you happy now?
I am happy.
That's good.
Dave, we're up against the clock.
All right.
It's been good talking with you as
always.
Friend,
it's always great talking to you. Do we have any messages on here? A couple. Let's see. Let's read that before JJ goes and eats some eggs.
Already had them.
Yeah. Rico Camino, good morning. Good morning, Rico.
Morning,
Say hi to your
Rico.
friend Henderson, will you? Patricia Odin Maxwell, sounding good, looking good. Go team. Okay. Kathy Sanford Dillon, good morning and happy Friday, everyone. She invented that, by the way. And have a blessed weekend. Love you all. We love you too. And Patricia Odin Maxwell, once again, go JJ.
Thank you, Pastor
All right. And I think, and those in Rolla vote on Megan Johnson for city council member this coming Tuesday, April the 8th.
There we go.
All right. We got it all. Let's hear it for JJ Bradshaw.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
Talk to you next Friday.
Attaboy. Great job. All right. So let's do a couple of, what do we got here? Do a couple of clips. I want all these clips played today because we usually end up with a bunch of them. And this you're going to hear Mark Levin, and you're also going to hear Newt Gingrich talking just about these judges and what they're doing. Hit it.
You see these people going on TV saying all these things Trump's doing are unconstitutional. Show me. Where? Where does the United States Constitution prevent the head of the executive branch, who's created by the Constitution, the President of the United States, who was elected by you through the Electoral College, who swore to uphold the Constitution at the time and the place he was expected to do it? He's upholding the Constitution, his campaign promises. Where does it say in the Constitution? Where? That a president of the United States cannot reorganize aspects of the federal government. It doesn't. Where does it say in the Constitution that he doesn't have some control over the employees that serve the executive branch, who report indirectly, but nonetheless, to him through intermediaries, his cabinet and other officials? Where does it say that they don't? Nowhere. They don't even exist in the Constitution. Where does it say that he can't freeze part of the spending, particularly spending that was pushed by the prior administration on the way out the door? These radical left-wing grants and so forth and so on, discretionary spending. It doesn't. None of that is in the Constitution. And I could go down the list. Now, if there's a federal statute that has been passed by Congress and signed by a president that says there's certain things he cannot do, even though those are of questionable constitutionality, that's at least colorable.
Your home is your castle. You don't need unwanted hassle. Don't let those creatures move in the state. Let us protect your investments, that's what we're all about. Plank Termite and Pest Control will save the day. Plank is locally owned and family operated right here in Rolla, a Google preferred business. Our customer service and your satisfaction is our number one goal. So call Plank today at 368-3333. Plank Termite and Pest Control will save the day.
Honey, what are you doing?
What does it look like I'm doing?
It looks like you're filling up a swimming pool.
Yep, I'm filling up a swimming pool.
In our living room?
How else am I going to watch the game and stay cool?
If your AC is on the fritz, call Hartley's Climate Control. Hartley's is the area's best in HVAC repairs, installs, and maintenance. Knowledgeable, honest, and dependable. Serving Rolla and the surrounding areas for commercial or residential needs. Hartley's Climate Control. Community born, community raised, community serving.
Call Hartley's Climate Control today at 573-368-3163.
Never be too coy to tell your friends and family about Koi Sushi and Hibachi. Celebrate the best Chinese-Japanese restaurant in the Midwest. Call 573-426-5551 to make a reservation or order takeout. Locally owned, 1808 North Bishop, Rolla, Missouri.
We can sum up McDonald's new crispy chicken sandwich in one word. Crispy. But also juicy and tender. Okay, it's crispy, juicy, tender. All one word. But then, also pickle. Oh, and potato bun, which is two words. Okay, we can't sum up our new crispy chicken sandwich in one word, so you'll just have to try it to understand it. Order ahead on the McDonald's app at participating McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Merrill's Quarry and Asphalt, 40 years serving cities, counties, and everyday businesses with driveways for people who live and work in our little piece of heaven right smack dab in the middle of America. Call 573-578-9101 for your free estimate of rocking, rolling, paving, driveways, sealing, and striping too. That's 573-578-9101 for your free estimate.
Your home is your castle, you don't need unwanted hassle. Don't let those creatures move in to stay. Let us protect your investments, that's what we're all about. Plank Termite and Pest Control will save the day. Plank is locally owned and family operated right here in Rolla, a Google preferred business. Our customer service and your satisfaction is our number one goal. So call Plank today at 368-3333. Plank Termite and Pest Control will save the day.
At your locally owned Price Chopper, our standards are high because we know yours are. See for yourself what an incredible fresh selection of grocery items we have in store. Talk to our expert meat associates about what you're looking for. They're happy to meet any special requests like custom cuts, or see our expert produce associates on how to pick out the best fruits and vegetables. Quality in the deli means fresh, full flavor, and always delicious. If you're craving fresh, baked goodness, we have that too. You can expect the best selection and the best value while interacting with our friendly and knowledgeable employees. You can find what you're looking for fast and easily at the best prices at Price Chopper. Fresh savings every day. A-Car Real Estate, where experience matters. 532 million sold since 2003, the number one sales volume in Phelps County. As a client for decades, I can say they are the best in mid-Missouri. Call 573-368-7355. That's 573-368-7355 for the best real estate experience you'll ever have. Gotta reach 'em, see it right now. Insurance going up like crazy? Daniel and Henry Insurance is one of the largest private insurance companies in the world. Richard Boyette, 314-444-5011. He's my guy at Daniel and Henry for 10 years. Business or personal, call Richard at 314-444-5011. He's the best.
At Town & Country Bank, we've got all the perks of a national bank, like online banking, quick loan approval, and you can deposit your check from your phone. But that's not why our customers love us. They love us because we still offer hometown customer service. Stop by one of our 2 Rolla locations and let our friendly team remind you how special hometown banking can be. We're locally owned and will take the time to understand your needs. Smart, friendly solutions. Town & Country Bank. Member FDIC. Equal housing lender.
Ladies and gentlemen, the count of death for IDF soldiers has left about 1,000 Jewish kids with moms who are widows now, and they need so much more help. Your dollars will go to these widows and helps them cope with finding places to live with other widows and their children. Please welcome all the way from Efrat, Israel, Moshe Rothschild. Hi, Rabbi. How are you doing?
Good, Dave. How are you?
Good. Thanks for asking. When is Pesach?
It is actually a week from tomorrow.
A week from tomorrow. Okay. Unleavened bread. And what does Pesach represent? What holiday is this?
It's the holiday of redemption when the Exodus occurred. The Jews, the Israelites technically left Egypt, and after the 10 plagues, and then we crossed the Red Sea, we came to Mount Sinai. But it represents the holiday of freedom, the beginning of the Jewish people, the Jewish nation.
Okay, thank you for that. So Bibi announced Israel is taking over Gaza. Why?
Bibi announced Israel is taking over Gaza. Well, I did not actually see that announcement.
I saw it in the Jerusalem Post and other places.
Really? Well, what I think maybe what you're referring to is that as the Hamas is not releasing hostages, in response is that we're going to be slowly taking over more and more areas of Gaza, that the only thing that they seem to listen to is losing their land, till eventually there's either no Gaza left or they've released the hostages.
Well, you have the same problem in Syria. You have the same problem in Lebanon.
We have the same
not
problem
as much as Lebanon, but
we don't have hostages in those countries. That's the big difference.
Okay.
Is that, when Lebanon or Syria is a problem, we can bomb those countries freely without worrying about killing our own hostages, which they estimate of the 59 that there are 24 who are still alive. So, there's always that, that lack of freedom, complete freedom of movement, of action on the IDF out of concern for the hostages.
Right.
But it is well known here in the Middle East that the mentality of the jihadis is that they don't care about human life, that they're a death cult. But what they do care about is land. It's one thing they do care about. So this idea of threatening to take over land, I've heard, I read things like 1 kilometer for every day. I've read all kinds of things, but Israel is definitely in the south, and Rafah taken over a lot larger swaths of land. And the hope is you take land that will motivate them to release hostages.
To put this in context, about how many Muslim states are there, and how much land do they have compared to Israel?
Right. Well, if you picture a football field and on the 50-yard line, a matchbox, Israel is like that matchbox. There are over 20, 30 Muslim countries in the area. And the amount, I don't know the exact area of their land, but my analogy is a good one. And if you look at a map if you type in Google, Israel compared to the Arab countries, you'll find these incredible maps showing, and you can't even write the word Israel on the country. It's so small.
Yeah.
You write Saudi Arabia, there's so much room, you could probably write 30 other countries just on the names on Saudi Arabia's territory.
Sure.
Israel is tiny. And then they tell us that matchbook that's sitting at the 50-yard line, the only way we can have peace with you is if you give us half of that.
Yeah.
Which is
it's a joke and never should have been accompanied with Jewish cooperation, quite frankly. Hamas sending terrorists to kill Jews worldwide. Isn't that nice? And they're recommending IDF forces. What I'm saying is, why don't we have IDF forces going after these thugs, no matter where they go? None of us are safe.
Well, because the international law is that you cannot operate with weapons in other countries unless you have permission of those countries.
Now, if they have weapons in these countries and these countries are not doing anything about it, then that sort of subverts that comment, doesn't it? I mean, it subverts that ability to protect yourself in another country.
Right, but for example, the IDF can't send troops to Canada. They're not. They'll get arrested. They can't send troops to countries without permission. I know there are countries in Africa that actually hire Israeli security, former IDF soldiers, and they have to first get permission for them to hold weapons in those countries. Yes, Israel goes after them very covertly in covert operations, but you can't send 100 IDF soldiers to Colombia to.
Oh yeah, I'm not talking about full.
Well, that would be great, though. That would be amazing.
Full and bigger armies. I'm talking about a organization that goes out and where these countries do not react to Jews getting killed, while you're getting the Jews the hell out of there and seeing another place, you go in and you find these guys and kill them and then get the hell out. What are they going to do if they're not already protecting these Jews?
Yeah, I mean, who's to say it's not happening covertly already? But I would love
to see that happen. I mean, I think it's important, and I think Jews.
I would love to send IDF soldiers to Colombia, to the campus there.
Okay, well, they are really. They're sending out these. Now Trump has taken care of that by making sure these universities don't have money from the government. $400 million is threatened to be taken away from Columbia College, and you can't wear masks anymore, and they have police that will arrest you. Right. And so that's a big step. So now Columbia, guess what? It's like a tariff. They're cooperating.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, fine. You can do it that way. But if you were doing it the way Biden was doing it, which is kissing the terrorist arses as Jews were being locked out of school and beat up, that was leading into killing Jews right away.
Right. And by the way, it's not just Columbia that he's punishing financially. It's other universities, Princeton, I think Harvard. But we'll see what happens. We'll see.
Okay. Hamas admits that 72% of the deaths in Gaza were combat aged men, as it reduces the civilian death. This is significant, don't you think?
Right. I mean, we've known that for the last year and a half. The problem is people like Piers Morgan and all these talking heads, and putting pressure on Israel, saying, "Oh, we're killing women and children," and Israel has been saying all along that it's just you're buying into the Hamas lies, the Hamas propaganda. You're listening to the statistics coming out of the mouths of terrorists, and finally, now at this point, where the cat has already been let out of the bag, and Israel, the lie is so far ahead of the truth
Yeah.
that I'm not sure it's going to make a difference. No
Well, it
one's
sounds like me like Hamas is that's a bargaining. That's a bargaining thing right there. And
yeah.
why they give out the hostages? Have you talked to your friend Ron Dermer?
I haven't spoken to him, but the truth is, Dave, I don't know why Hamas would change those figures. You know, it was working in their favor. The
Well,
lies
that's what I'm getting at. Maybe I'm saying maybe there's been something happen that has made them do this in a coordinated effort to get the war over.
I guess it's possible. I don't know. I mean, you never know. There's so much chess being played that you can't always predict. You know,
Yeah.
what's the moves today? What are the moves down the road? You know.
Well, it's all all of this stuff is based on balance and a balance of retaliation. In my thoughts, that if they're going to stick it to you, you got to stick it to them back a lot worse. You have Australia now. It's telling people it's our duty to make Jews uncomfortable. First, you have them make them uncomfortable. The Germans didn't kill them right off the bat; they made them uncomfortable.
Right.
They smashed their stores and things like that, and pushed them around a little bit, but they didn't do it right away. But it led into it, into the Holocaust.
Yeah.
So it's a tough battle to be a Jew and not have anybody back you from the state that is the only Jewish state in the world.
Yeah, well, look, things have changed since October 7th for not only for Israel but for Jews all over the world. And I'm not sure I'd want to be a 20-year-old Jew today. You know, facing my whole life ahead of me with the path that it's on right now. You know, Trump's not going to be around forever to give us cover from the United States, and who knows where the U.S. is heading. So
yeah,
it's we're living in very challenging times.
Well, even you were nervous about going to the Vague, is it
the Hague?
The Hague, yeah, the Hague. Even you were nervous. I had it written down right, the Hague. All right. Yeah. Even you were nervous about that because they were very anti-Semitic.
Right. Look, I going to Europe is a very scary proposition for someone who's normally used to walking around, who's very noticeably, identifiably Jewish, and the truth is, even in the United States, there are places where I don't feel so comfortable. So,
well, Switzerland, the keeper of Nazi jewelry and gold teeth out of Jews, and then murdered in the Holocaust, reached an unprecedented level of anti-Semitism in 2024. Why? Didn't they get enough Jewish goodies?
Well, I guess once you whet your appetite for riches and etc., there's no putting that. There's no putting that back into the bag. So, everyone wants a piece of the pie.
And Egypt is willing to. Well, here's somebody that seems to be cooperating. Egypt is willing to temporarily take 500,000 Gazans in.
Right. On the one hand, yeah, that's a good thing. However, Egypt's been violating our peace treaty and building up troops in the Sinai Desert. So the United States, as a signatory on that peace treaty, is really responsible to guarantee the treaty. And so Israel has lodged a complaint with the U.S. about this buildup. So on the one hand, yeah, that's a good thing. If they take 500,000 Gazans, fantastic. But this buildup is very worrisome of the Egyptian troops there.
Sure. The Gazans are taking on Hamas, it appears, and they're blowing back on Hamas. That's after electing them, 5 or 6 different times. They've had Hamas in charge since 2005. Is that correct? 20 years of this.
Yeah.
And they haven't done a damn thing about it. and they were celebrating by taking sticks and all sorts of things and beating dead Jews on October the 7th and later than that, right? These are the same people that put these people in power.
Look,
Now they're crying to Hamas to stop.
Look, I don't think that these protests in Gaza against Hamas are are so significant in the sense that it's not like they've suddenly turned around and say, "Hey, we love Israel, we want to get rid of Hamas." They just want to get rid of the pain and get rid of Hamas and replace them with other Israel haters who aren't necessarily going to do an October 7th, but they're not saying we want to live in peace with Israel. They're just getting punched in the face over and over. So they say, hey, we want to get rid of that. Some people are even reporting that this is all a Hamas ploy, that Hamas is behind it in order to get Israel to stop.
Well, nothing's going to stop Israel, not even the United States or anyone, unless all the hostages are given back. And
that's right. Until we get the hostages, this whole thing could end very, very quickly if they would just release the hostages.
Well, their concept was, make money off the hostages, and we'll be okay. Right. And it's you can't let that work.
Yeah,
right. Houthis are being destroyed of most of its missiles by the USA, and Khamenei threatens Israel if Trump bombs Iran. So these are connected, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, back in 1991, when Iraq had entered into Kuwait, and the United States told Iraq to leave Kuwait, and Iraq said, "If you attack us, we'll attack Israel." Israel had nothing to do with it, and the way that's how it kind of works here. If the United States bombs Iran, Iran's going to bomb Israel because they see that as a way of trying to galvanize other Muslim countries onto their side. So, that's the insane logic of the Middle East.
Yeah. Laura Loomer. I kind of founded her in that I was talking to her before this happened, but right around when I called her to try to get her on the show, I was listening to Rush Limbaugh, and he starts talking about this gal about running into Maxine Waters and telling her what for and all that stuff. I called her and told her, and she didn't know about it. So I'm taking a little bit of recognition there. For she was a guest on the show for a couple of years and then stood me up a couple of times. Yeah. Oh well, she still follows me on whatever, but now she's become a chief advisor to President Trump, going on Air Force One and getting him to fire 10 or so NSC operatives.
It didn't say it was definitive. It said that's like the talk, the rumor. But yeah, the fact that she has gotten as far as she's gotten, maybe she stood you up because she was chained to a fence or something.
No, maybe she stood me up because she wasn't chained to a fence.
Oh, okay.
I had a conversation with her about that with her father there. I said, why are you going to do that? You're going to be totally at anyone's wanting to do anything to you that could happen, and you're going to be chained to something.
Right.
I don't see the logic in that.
She changed herself to Twitter, I think it was. To the
yes. Yeah. Yeah. She changed herself to Twitter. And it worked apparently. I mean, I just thought that was crazy. And I spent some time with her at a hotel in. Wait a minute, this is going to sound right. It was a meeting, so to speak, where it was sponsored by the brothers up there in St. Louis, and I forget their name too. But so she went out there because there was a Antifa demonstration, right? So I decided, why not? So I went out there too. And she did everything in her power to try these people, to get them so angry they're going to punch her or something, or me. And so I was starting to talk and starting to reason with these people. I mean, and they were not a visible threat. And I was sort of getting along with them and telling them about Marxism and how it doesn't work and stuff. And one little gal comes up to me and says, "Are you Dave Weinbaum?" And I'm looking around saying, "What the hell's that? How does she know who I am?" Right? Yeah. "Oh, I used to work for you a couple of years ago at McDonald's." I tell you what, that was funnier than hell. Anyhow, back to us. Any rabbi rants or scoops?
Well, I am planning May 18th to be in your area that Sunday. I sent a message. Oh, there's Pastor Pat.
Yeah.
She didn't respond to the email, but I guess you got it, Pastor Pat, because I sent you that email May 18th.
Yeah.
So let's get a nice crowd out there.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll be in town. I don't know. My wife that's her anniversary.
Oh, okay. Well, the next week is Memorial Day weekend, but it's before that. So.
Yeah. Okay. No problem.
All right. So, Pastor Pat, so I guess I'm going away with Dave and Lisa that weekend. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yes. Three's a crowd in that situation.
It's not three. It's not three. Ari's coming, so there's four of us. So
is he?
Cool. Even better.
Great.
Even
Great.
better.
Great. So, other than Dave Weinbaum Show, where can people find you and buy your book, and tell us what your book is about?
So go to secretsofthehebrewbible.org and it will open a whole new world of the Hebrew Bible based on the Hebrew language. Even if you don't read or speak Hebrew or even recognize the letters, this book will open up a whole new world for you.
It's in English with Hebrew, but English explains what the differences are between some of these words that are in the Bible that have been misinterpreted. Correct?
Yeah. Because the translations are sometimes very poor.
I went to a uniform shop, but they were all different. He laughed. See, it was a deep joke.
I like that one.
There was a lot of weaving going on with that. See, that one would have been your fault if you would have done that, because the rabbi, he's a smart guy, and I figure he's got to go for something more sophisticated. Plus, he's a stand-up comic. Rabbi, Shabbat Shalom, my friend.
Shabbat Shalom. Thanks for having me. Everyone, take care. Bye-bye.
My pleasure. You too. Bye-bye. All right. And my wife waved bye. And we're in pretty good shape. Let's play something funny. Do that one bit that I wanted, and then do a Carlin and a Reagan. Yeah. Victories often occur when you see no way to succeed, but refuse to give up anyway. Okay, so how does that happen? It happens because you know what? You're either tired of losing, or you say, you know what? I'm going through with this thing one way or the other, and you do it, and you find out that you have maybe some hidden power that maybe God has granted you, and maybe you ought to try using instead of quitting, instead of giving up. And I've learned from that, and that's why I write about that kind of stuff. I have a quote about it.
Do you ever find yourself standing in one of the rooms in your house and you can't remember why you went in there? And two words float across your mind: Alzheimer's disease. You ever been talking to yourself and somebody comes in the room and you have to make believe you were singing? And you hope to God the other person really believes there's a song called What Does She Think I Am? Some kind of putz?
You already are the oldest president in history, and some of your staff say you were tired after your most recent encounter with Mr. Mondale. I recall yet that President Kennedy had to go for days on end with very little sleep during the Cuba Missile Crisis. Is there any doubt in your mind that you would be able to function in such circumstances?
Not at all, Mr. Truitt, and I want you to know that also I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience.
All right, we're back. We're back, and coming up next, let's see, who do we got? We got a great one, we got Don Mayhew, a chicken farmer and an engineer who happens also to be a state representative, and he's a funny guy. He likes picking on me, and I like that. You know, we have a good give and take. And he says he's getting out of here at 10:30, and that's when the show's over. You know, we're going to have Jeff Zink following him. Between him and Jeff Zink, though, is Tom Haviland, and he is great. This is a guy that found out that these shots may be causing the pandemic shots. Probably are causing these white fibrous blood clots that are killing and maiming and harming all the people that, or a lot of the people that have taken these shots. A lot of heart attacks caused by it, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure you guys started picking up shortly after 1920, 21 about, you know, relatives and people that you knew, all of a sudden, they weren't there anymore. And it's family, you know, a couple of uncles in my daughter-in-law's family, my wife's sister's brother. These people just the guy who was really a really good butcher at Kroger's, and I found out they all died. Not only that, but my best friend at the time was my banker in St. Louis. He was with Cash Bank, and I did a lot of business with him, known him for years and years and years. And suddenly he didn't answer my phone call, and so I called him back, and he sounded terrible. I says, "What the hell's the matter with you?" And he said, "Well, I've got the flu." And I says, "You sure it's not this pandemic stuff?" He says, No, it's the flu." I says, "Well, you better get a second opinion because you sound terrible." So he did, and he found out that he had his heart was clogged. Okay, and he said, "But they've operated." This was the next day after the operation. They've operated, and they've got it now. And he sounded better for about a day. Then he had a couple strokes, and he was dead. And this guy had never had a heart problem in his life. And this was right after, and I didn't know this. It was right after he took the first of two shots that were to be taken from Moderna, I believe it was. And, you know, you start listening to that, and then you look at the VAERS report, which is the official CDS report, and you find that if you look at sometime in 2020 or 2021, the comparison to all 31 years of other vaccines and their harm or ability to kill people and things like that, they were all pretty low, you know, all pretty low until you get to 2021 and or 2020, and all of a sudden they jump up, jump up, highly recognizable, until you wonder, well, where are the doctors at? Where are the politicians? What were they doing? And the answers are not good. And Thomas Haviland is the one that discovered these white fibrous clots because he went to the embalmers and he asked them, "Are you seeing any diseases and any things that's out of normal from what you've been seeing through 2020?" And they say, yeah, as a matter of fact, we've had a lot of these white fibrous veins, and it seems to be cognizant with people who are dying from and have taken the shot. So now we're talking about this guy. A lot of people had to go into hiding. A lot of people like me were shadow banned and are banned completely. They're still doing that banning, by the way, in certain other situations. And, I'm glad I kept on talking. I mean, there were some days when I wondered if I'd have a show the next week, But, we're doing pretty well right now. Apparently, Facebook is letting it go to a certain extent. But we'll see, Life is a funny thing. You look at Trump and his triumph and look at what's happening today. I don't know what the stock market's doing today. I hope it reverses, but it's not likely to reverse for a while. All right. So let's play a couple more clips, and pretty soon we're going to have the honor of greeting a chicken farmer, Don Mayhew, who's an engineer, and also he's a state rep. And we got a lot of questions for him. Hit it.
Where are those statutes? How come they're not citing them? How come these legal analysts, these professors, these former federal prosecutors, how come none of them are telling us where to go? What are we supposed to look at? Now, to my knowledge, they don't exist. Maybe there's one or two. What's going on here? You have Democrat attorneys general, a cabal, who are colluding, who got together and said, everything Trump does, we're going to bring a lawsuit. And these Democrat attorneys general represent maybe a score of states, maybe a few more. And so what they're doing is within their left-wing jurisdictions, the most liberal left-wing cities that they can bring a federal challenge, a petition. That's what they're doing. Seattle, Washington, Boston, Providence, Rhode Island. Does it get more liberal than these cities? They're going into these sittings because what do they know? They're liberal. Now, the vast majority of judges in these cities, in these inner cities, have been appointed by Democrats. Now, I looked at the judges in these cases that are trying to sabotage Trump. All but two were appointed by either Obama, Biden, or Clinton. You've got two, Royce Lamberth, who's a judge in Washington, D.C., who was appointed by Reagan. I've known him well, and I refuse to speak to him ever again because he's gone off the cliff on the January 6 cases. He despises Donald Trump. He's involved in the federal prison cases where Donald Trump is ordered. We don't care if you think you've transitioned, if you have through medicines and surgery. If you're a biological male, you're a male and you're staying in a male prison. He says, well, there may be some fundamental constitutional issues there. Like what?
Your home is your castle, you don't need unwanted hassle. Don't let those creatures move in to stay. Let us protect your investments, that's what we're all about. Plank Termite and Pest Control will save the day.
Plank is locally owned and family operated right here in Rolla, a Google preferred business. Our customer service and your satisfaction is our number one goal. So call Plank today at 368-3333.
Plank Termite and Pest Control will save the day.
With warmer temperatures right around the corner and allergies ramping up, now's the time to get those AC units serviced. At Hartley's, we pride ourselves in offering outstanding service with fast response times. With proper maintenance, you can make those hot days be a lot cooler and remove those pesky allergens that always seem to find their way into your home. Call us today so you can be living a much cooler and healthier life. Hartley's, community born, community raised, community serving.
Call Hartley's Climate Control today at 573-368-3163.
Never be too coy to tell your friends and family about Koi Sushi and Hibachi. Celebrate the best Chinese-Japanese restaurant in the Midwest. Call 573-426-5551 to make a reservation or order takeout. Locally owned, 1808 North Bishop, Rolla, Missouri.
We can sum up McDonald's new crispy chicken sandwich in one word. Crispy. But also juicy and tender. Okay, it's crispy, juicy, tender. All one word? But then, also pickle. Oh, and potato bun, which is two words. Okay, we can't sum up our new crispy chicken sandwich in one word, so you'll just have to try it to understand it. Order ahead on the McDonald's app at participating McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Merrill's Quarry and Asphalt, 40 years serving cities, counties, and everyday businesses with driveways for people who live and work in our little piece of heaven right smack dab in the middle of America. Call 573-578-9101 for your free estimate of rocking, rolling, paving, driveways, sealing, and striping too. That's 573-578-9101 for your free estimate.
Your home is your castle. You don't need unwanted hassle. Don't let those creatures move in to stay. Let us protect your investments. That's what we're all about. Plank Termite and Pest Control will save the day. Plank is locally owned and family operated right here in Rolla, a Google preferred business. Our customer service and your satisfaction is our number one goal. So call Plank today at 368-3333. Plank Termite and Pest Control will save the day.
Busy schedule? Let your locally owned Price Chopper help you save time with online shopping. It's easy. Sign up to tcmarkets.com or download our mobile app in the App Store or Google Play. Create an account and browse through the categories and choose the items you need. When you place your order, your personal shopper will get all of the items you've selected, taking the same care you would and following your notes. We offer free curbside pickup, so you don't even have to get out of your car. Start your online order today and no online shopping fee for a limited time. Go to tcmarkets.com or download our mobile app to get started. Price Chopper. Fresher savings every day. A-Car Real Estate, where experience matters. 532 million sold since 2003, the number one sales volume in Phelps County. As a client for decades, I can say they are the best in mid-Missouri. Call 573-368-7355. That's 573-368-7355 for the best real estate experience you'll ever have.
Gotta reach 'em, see it right now.
Insurance going up like crazy? Daniel and Henry Insurance is one of the largest private insurance companies in the world. Richard Boyette, 314-444-5011. He's my guy at Daniel and Henry for 10 years. Business or personal, call Richard at 314-444-5011. He's the best.
At Town & Country Bank, we are committed to providing exceptional service to our customers. We do more than just provide loans for our community. We help make dreams become reality. Whether it's a new home, farm, business, or a new car, we would love the opportunity to help. Stop by one of our 2 Rolla locations and let our friendly lending team remind you how special hometown banking can be. Smart, friendly solutions. Town & Country Bank. Member FDIC. Equal housing lender.
All right, we're back. We just got a little visit from a egg farmer, engineer, and politician, and he's left a couple of cases of eggs. Isn't that something? Take a look. God, you should take a picture of those and sell them. Sell the pictures of it. So he'll be on. He's getting his coffee, and he's taking over. I don't know. I don't understand. He comes in, 20 minutes early at Well, last week it was 40 minutes early, I think. And this week it's like 20 minutes early, and I guess that's a good thing, isn't it? Yeah. But he's saying he's not leaving until the end of the show. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? So now he'll be on with Thomas Haviland and probably Jeff Zink, which should create either a ridiculous free-for-all if I can't control them, of which I will throw him out.
Well,
I will have to, because, come on.
That could come into question, but I am curious to maybe see a conversation if he can stay on between Tom and Jeff, because Tom has some really important information that needs to be in the hands of RFK, and Jeff could be the possible connection to make that happen directly.
Yeah, remember, Jeff is connected to RFK. That's Robert Kennedy Jr., and he's somewhere there. He doesn't know whether he's going to be the assistant general to the HHS administration seat, or he's going to be the chief of staff to RFK Jr. So that should be interesting. And he has got a huge repertoire of what he intends to do as well. And also his judge for his son at the 1-6 trials was who? None other than Boasberg, who is now in the news trying to destroy this country by being a runaway judge who has no constitutional power to do what he's doing, except to extend it to the Supreme Court. Christopher Ranzani. Good morning, Dave, and the lovely Lisa Weinbaum. Hope all is well, as can be after the Rolla tornado. Oh, you got that right. Sounding great this morning. Hats off to the crew. My hat is off. By the way, I brought a Trump hat. You might want to put it close. There it is. I brought it. So anyways, thank you, Godfather. We call him the Godfather here. And listen, don't forget about it, all right? Don't forget about it. Tuesday, you got a meeting, with the Italiano guy there. He calls himself Guido. So you got to take that meeting, all right? Are we straight on that? Okay, good.
I think we have.
Yes.
Let me see here. I've got something.
All right, let's do it.
We got something for him here.
Yes. Sometimes you have to spread a little mustard to catch up. Forget about it. Yeah, you got to spread a little of that mustard. Ketchup, it's a little sweet. You don't want to ruin your sauce. Ketchup, you got to have some garlic. Got to have a lot of garlic in the sauce. Am I wrong? This is a Jewish guy talking about pasta. But I think, since the Romans overthrew the Jews in Israel, I think we have a camaraderie, or maybe a love-hate thing, like we're brothers, and yet there's a love-hate thing. There are an awful lot of Jews that were in the mafia, that's for sure, or had their own separate connection to it. And one of them was my father, actually. So, all right. So we have with us today, man. Are you ready to go, or are you just here to do homework?
No, I thought I'd just do a little work while I'm here, because since usually I don't get to talk. So
you're such a liar. Come on.
Hey.
Well, that's a lie. That's not true, and he knows it's not true.
Harsh.
Harsh?
It's harsh.
Okay, your truth telling has been challenged. How's that?
What?
Right? Your truth telling has been challenged. He's pissed off.
Are you saying something about the veracity of my position in
Yeah, because I'm trying to
part-time
introduce
job?
you. Right now, I'm trying to introduce you.
Oh yeah, go ahead and do that part
with the kind words that I have for you.
The only part of the show I like the
Is what?
introductions. So
Is
yeah.
what your segment? Is that it?
Well, of course, my segment when I get to talk, but
oh my god, I might try to stretch this out for about 20 minutes, anyways. All right, he is an engineering chicken monger who convinced Trump to make hens and roosters to produce more eggs. Oh, and he represents the state of Missouri as well as a state rep. Please welcome all the way from Crocker, Missouri,
the big city,
Don Mayhew. Now, is anything wrong with that introduction?
So I've noticed that your studio audience has gotten a lot bigger. You must have told them ahead of time that I was going to be
Oh
here,
my
so.
God! Wow, look at that. We got 3 more on. You got your wife on and a couple of kids, or
Well, what about the homeless guy? He shows up.
what about you? Count the chickens?
Did I count them?
Did you count them before they hatched?
And wait a minute. Are you
can't
talking
count
about the number
you
that
can't
I
count the kitchens before they hatch?
Are you talking about the number I claim on my assessment form, or the
I don't know.
actual live
You got the
chickens?
big LLC that you got to report to. You know.
Well, I have. There's those transient chickens. I don't know where they.
Honey, would you put in a call to Elon? I think he needs to be checked.
I'm sure he'll get to it.
Checked.
I'm sure he'll get around.
Checked, yeah.
Doge will be on his doorstep when he gets home.
No, I am actually on our version of the committee and our version of Doge at
Really?
the state capitol. Yeah, Jefferson
Really?
City. Yeah, absolutely.
How about you take on the city of Rolla with all their tax increases that are ridiculous?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Now that I'm going to pull the standard dodge on this one.
Well,
that is a local thing. We don't usually get involved in local things until, of course, we do in Jefferson City. But no, I've got an interesting hearing coming up this week. We can get into later on. For Pete's sake.
Can we listen to the material, please?
Oh God.
Yeah, let's do that.
I know. But when he opens up like saying, "Well, I got to go to the stuff that's stacked in my brain that's been there forever." I mean, it's not original. It's stuff you've already said. You're not saying anything that's appropriate to the question.
So pick a topic.
Taxes went up in this city. Why? Do you represent this area?
No.
Which area do you represent?
So before redistricting, yes, I did represent this area, but I don't represent the folks on city council anyway.
When did you lose the governing of this city?
So I don't know
How long ago?
I don't know if you're aware of this, but every 10 years we have a census, and every 10 years we adjust the district boundaries to match the change.
I don't want to know that. I want to know when this happened.
I don't know.
Because you're dodging it again.
2020?
You're dodging it again because it was probably this tax increase has been going on for a long time, and it was postponed for a year or two until you left.
Well, so the census happens every 10 years on a 10-year
Is that
number.
true?
Yes.
Redistrict.
And then from
Yes, I
those
know
populations, so until 2022, I represented the northwest corner of Phelps County. And so then after that, the district boundary was changed, and so I wasn't. But even then, I'm not on city. I'm not a de facto member of city council by being a state representative.
Yeah.
So the city council, that'd be something you'd have to take up with some member of the city council if you want to complain about taxes. I'm sure they provide a venue for citizens such as yourself to air their grievances, and certainly every city council meeting, I am certain they provide opportunities for public comment.
Well, I've done that before.
Yes,
but you're a person that probably could represent my point of view, seeing as you're on the property of Rolla, Missouri.
Oh, I get it. So I can be the bad guy.
Ensconced in the middle of this county.
Yeah,
Phelps County. This is Phelps County. You're in it, and
you're
making opinions right now.
Are you chicken?
Am I chicken?
Yeah.
No, not unless I drop an egg.
Oh, well, yeah. As a citizen, you should relish the opportunity to provide your valuable input to those that
I've done it.
Those are your public servants.
I've done it.
Well, then what do you want me to do?
I thought you were my public servant.
I am the public servant, but we only.
How come I don't have any problem with Bill representing me?
Did Bill go to the city council and complain about city taxes?
You know, he's pretty busy writing bills and things like that. Are you writing any bills?
I, in fact, have the record for the number of bills filed this year.
Let's hear what you got.
Well, where do you want me to start?
I don't know. Just tell us what you did.
Okay. Well, I've got my catalytic converter bill, which always passes out of the House of Representatives.
Your what?
My bill that
Cadillac bill?
Catalytic converter.
Catalytic. I see.
You know, those things that you spend your weekends collecting from other people's cars. Because I know, I know how you
know about that,
your income. Yeah,
you know
He
about
has
that?
no expertise with tools. It's not
That's
him.
right.
He
hired-
can't even screw
See,
in a light bulb.
how about that? That's
He
the
can't
only
even
way she'll
screw in a
defend
light
me
bulb.
is to diss me.
You can't. You don't
So-
change your own light bulbs.
No, I think
I can change light
I think she was providing your alibi, actually.
You think?
So yeah,
No.
knowing that she
No.
couldn't testify against
It would
you
be
in
her
court.
saying, "Yeah, he did that. He did.
Yeah.
He did that."
Well, but she wasn't. So that also, besides providing your alibi, she couldn't testify against you anyway. So you're probably okay.
Thank God. All right. So what other bills? You got?
Okay, so the most interesting one is it's getting heard in committee this week. I don't remember if we talked about it or not, but the National Park Service has their own police. Let's say we call them park rangers, and they have for a few years now decided that they need to write speeding tickets on the state highways and those kind of things, right?
Really?
Now, my opinion is that they were hired to collect lot rent in the campground, and doing whatever it is that park rangers do inside the park boundaries, but certainly not to be writing tickets to people. It's pretty much a harassment of local citizens. At any rate, we had a committee hearing down in Shannon County this summer. And I think it was about 109, 110 people showed up. 17 of them provided testimony on some things that are pretty egregious. I'll just give one example so everybody knows what I'm talking about. But one of the associate commissioners, a couple of park rangers showed up on his property when he wasn't home. Now, he doesn't live in the park, right? His residence isn't one of these campground lots. And they confiscated his dog and took it to the pound.
Why?
Yeah. A federal agent came on his property way outside anything that would resemble their jurisdiction, confiscated private property from an associate commissioner. Not that it would matter if it was an associate commissioner, but that just tells you the lack of respect that they have for state government, because our counties are subsets of our state
Was
government.
the FBI guy or
No, these are park rangers. Park rangers.
Okay, they work for the federal government.
They work for the federal government.
So they think they can do anything they want to in these counties.
In fact, have stated as much.
Yeah,
that
they think it's legal.
Yeah, they.
How do they defend themselves?
Well, they say we're the federal government. There's not a thing you can do about it, and so I disagree. And so I filed a bill to. We had unfortunately signed for lack of a better term, a memorandum of understanding with the federal government on this National Scenic Riverways. And part of that memorandum of understanding was that they had law enforcement authority. Well, and which makes sense, right? They're going to operate as law enforcement agents on their property, but no sheriff down there, no county commissioner ever thought that authority would extend to them writing tickets to people on U.S. Highway 60, which, by the way, the only part of that boundary that on U.S. Highway 60 is right there in Van Buren, Missouri. But also to confiscate private property and do some of those other things. There was a lady who testified that it took 10 park rangers to write her a ticket for failure to signal. There was no accident involved. There was no other traffic in the area.
Well, was she beating the hell out of them or something, or 10 of them?
So she was she was about 5'2", I believe.
Pretty tough woman.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that.
A mother, and
Yeah.
had her children with her.
Oh.
So there was it's those kind of things that are, they're a bit silly, and so they've written tickets. Now the testimony was provided by former state highway patrolmen, county commissioners, as it said, and then a separate meeting, chief of police of Licking, Missouri, was harassed by them, and
he was harassed or arrested.
He was harassed by them. If I remember correctly, they stopped him because his truck didn't have a rear license plate on it, and his vehicle was licensed over 12,000 pounds. And in Missouri, you don't have to have a rear plate if your vehicle's licensed over 12,000 pounds. And so the conversation went a little bit like this, and I'm probably going to paraphrase it some, but at any rate, they stopped him and said, "You don't have a rear plate," and he said, "Well, this is Missouri, and in Missouri we don't have to have a rear plate." And they said, "Well, that's not federal law. Federal law says you got to have a rear plate." And he said, "Well, the last time I checked, I'm on a state highway here."
Yeah.
And they said, "We don't care.
Yeah.
This is this is near our park, and so we extend this authority."
Is there a constitutional issue here?
Yes, there is.
Yes,
100%.
There we go. Now that hit it right there. This reminds me of the judges out there right now who are out there telling the president what he can and can't do.
Yes.
Am I wrong?
Yep. Now, same similar thing. So this falls under the 17 enumerated powers. And so essentially one of those things that was that have been set aside for the federal government was that they maintain jurisdiction over forts, ports, and arsenals. Okay. Did I say national parks in there anywhere?
No.
Exactly.
Right.
So a fort is not a park.
Yeah.
You can't construe a fort to being a park. So Fort Leonard Wood would be an example.
Right.
Absolutely 100%. They should maintain
federal.
legal jurisdiction over that land, extending to.
So
law
you
enforcement.
don't see one of the police,
but not
from
the parks.
You don't see one of the policemen from St. Robert going to the fort and writing tickets,
or the state highway
or confiscating dogs,
or the state highway patrol.
Yeah,
correct.
All right,
and so once again, if you have if you think you have authority under color of law, well, obviously that doesn't extend or would allow you to steal property, correct? Yeah. So even if you could have some theory that, well, these are law enforcement agents performing their duty and they only made a mistake. No, stealing property is against the law no matter what kind of badge you carry, including FBI, park ranger, CIA, or whatever, correct? Yeah. So, and that's what we've got. Now, and once again,
what are the repercussions to these people that are doing that kind of stuff illegally? What is it? Because you know what? None of these judges that are pulling this off on Trump, none of them are going to go to jail. They might get their little wrists slapped and go back and do exactly what they're doing.
Well, that's the question we need to answer. And so I filed a bill. Representative Cook filed a bill. Representative Harbison also filed a bill. All very similar language. And we're going to have a hearing on Tuesday on that issue. And and yes, it's a constitutional question. We need to get this answered. And but it just shows you how deep the tentacles run. You know, it wasn't get rid of Joe Biden and everything is hunky dory. Right. No, this has been built layer upon layer upon layer of this bureaucratic nightmare that has been thrust upon the citizens of the United States, and it's going to take a little while to unravel this and return back to what our function is in government. And the reality is that even if we catch it up here at the top, well, there we have to have significant effort, kind of like what Doge is trying to do, to try to unravel this down at the bottom. Also, it's going to take longer than 4 years, folks. Unfortunately,
that's why when I do my monologues, usually I say Trump in 28 because he doesn't have enough time. They're gonna stall him out, in my opinion. Am I wrong?
No, that's exactly what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, and I'm going to beat on this drum just a little bit here, but this is really hypercritical. So we lost in the last month. We've lost 2 seats in the United States Congress to special elections because people didn't show up to vote. One of those areas was a district that voted 15 points for Donald Trump, and now it's always been a Republican representing them, and you say, well, how could that be lost? Well, it was because voter turnout was abysmal.
Yeah.
Same thing in Michigan with the Supreme Court justice there.
Right. But they did something there to make their elections more palatable to the Reds, to the Republicans, didn't they?
I don't recall that part of it.
You ought to look that up. Hey,
Yeah.
JP, look that up if you can and
Yeah.
find out. Have the Supreme Court election of a liberal judge in Wisconsin. Is there any other things that went on that was favorable to the Republicans in terms of elections?
Well, it was
Huh?
Yeah, they elect their Supreme Court justices.
Well, that's a state Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, we don't elect our judges here. I don't know if
Really?
We've talked about
Well,
this
I've known
before.
one. One was my lawyer, Benton, Dwayne Benton.
Was that from the 1923 Missouri State Supreme
Yeah, I'm
Court or
that
something?
old.
Because
I'm that
I
old.
don't recall a Benton, but perhaps there is.
Dwayne Benton? You don't know who Dwayne Benton is?
I guess not.
He was the head of the Supreme Court here in Missouri.
Okay. All right. When was that?
It was
give me
about 206 or something, 26.
Okay.
2006, 2007, around there.
You lost me. I
Yeah.
don't
Dwayne
recall a Benton, but perhaps there was.
Well, it wasn't one of Limbaugh's cousins was the head of the Supreme Court at one time too.
No, not head. Was on
Just on?
Yeah, just
Okay.
on.
Hell, I played golf with
I
him
don't think
once.
it was but I think he's still on there. I'm pretty sure he's still.
Well,
on there.
he was around before, I believe, that Dwayne Benton was on.
Okay.
All right.
I'm taking your word for it.
All right.
So in terms of the Wisconsin Supreme Court,
Yeah.
the only thing that's
was
the news is
Wisconsin,
focused on
I'm
right now is that I guess there's a liberal named Susan Crawford
Right.
who won the state Supreme Court race a couple days ago.
Yep, that's it.
So, yep.
That's
There's
what we're
something else
talking
that
about.
went on.
Once again, it was
Okay.
voter turnout, folks,
Yeah.
because Trump won Wisconsin, correct? So.
Well, yeah, he won all the swing states.
Right. So that's a continuing problem, and it happens right here. If conservatives would have got out and voted, we wouldn't have legalized recreational marijuana in the state. We wouldn't have Medicaid expansion, which, by the way, is right now is a $360 million hole in our budget. And
I'm sorry. Repeat that. I was looking for something else. Please.
So Medicaid expansion wouldn't have passed, which is a $360 million hole in our budget. And I haven't run the numbers exactly on it, but Amendment 3 would have more than likely failed had we had better voter turnout during that election.
Remind them exactly what Amendment 3 is. It has to do
that
with
was
abortion.
the abortion, unfettered, unrestricted abortion,
Yeah.
kill live babies, transgender
And that's,
operations.
right now, that's legal, and they're
Right.
coming up with an amendment, something that'll kill it.
Well, the killing it part is the problem. Now, would it be my preference if we got rid of it entirely? Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
But at this point, we're hoping to get something out of the House of Representatives and the Senate that, at the very least, will limit, take away some of these things like killing live babies, allowing anybody to perform an abortion, which absolutely
Is the law
in it.
today that you can kill a baby after it's born?
Yes, that is what the Constitution says.
Up to what age? 28?
Well, really not a restriction, but it's up to the medical professional who happens to be there to decide between the mother and the medical professional of whether or
After
not
a baby's born,
after
what
the
could be
baby
the
is
issue?
born. You
What
tell
could
me.
be? I'm asking.
I I don't know. I don't know why. What situation would you kill a live baby? I mean, I can't think of a situation where you would do that, or could legally. But I guess in reality, since we did
how old is define a baby? Is it how old is a baby before it becomes a person that can have a life?
Well, I still call my wife baby occasionally.
There you go.
So
you're part of the problem.
It is once again the constitutional amendment that was passed leaves that up to the judgment of the mother and the person and the medical professional there, and we say, well, that would never happen. That's not. Oh my goodness, folks, we have seen crazier stuff than even that when it comes to abortion. We actually had a governor in Virginia that suggested that was a good idea.
Yeah.
That
right.
We're going to make the baby comfortable, and then we're going to decide.
That's what the law is in California, isn't it?
I don't know what the law is in
I
California.
think it is.
I have a hard enough time keeping track of the laws in Missouri. We make them so fast. So.
Yep. There's one just for Don.
Uh-oh.
What's that?
Oh, I thought you were going to read comments.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't looking at it. Andrea Schrum. Good morning. Good morning, Andrea. How are you? Yes, Wisconsin voted to require voter ID. I knew that. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I knew that. Yes, that's what I was looking for, and that's a big deal because now they got to come up with an actual ID, a birth certificate, and or maybe a driver's license. Thank you so much. You saved my butt. Thank you.
And
also, it would have failed if Mary Elizabeth Coleman had not betrayed us. And instead of bringing IP reform up to the vote, she sent it back to committee. Atrocious. Glad she has decided not to run. Okay, so she's pertaining to our Amendment 3.
That had to do with the initiative petition reform that she was handling that bill. And yes, many of us were shocked at that particular series of events. She's not running for office again, but I think probably for some other reasons. And but the reality it shows you how important that subject to voter ID is to both Republicans and Democrats, because the same people who came out and voted for the very, very liberal Supreme Court justice in Wisconsin also voted for the picture ID.
How about that?
Yeah.
So that's a big disbursement of ideals.
No, absolutely, 100%. So it's so yes, we face a similar challenge here with the things that we need to do. We without a doubt need to go in and fix some of these more egregious parts of Amendment 3, like killing a live baby, late term abortions, and all of those things, and the transgender aspect, all of those things that the proponents of that amendment said weren't in there anyway. Well, we got to clarify those things.
Yeah.
The other thing we need to do, and it's not in either version, but I'm going to push real hard to get it in there, is our definition of fetal viability prior to Amendment 3 passing, because Amendment 3 passing, once again, leaves fetal viability up to the person who is performing or going to perform the abortion. Okay, well, according to the Constitution, that could be an EMT or a CNA or a guy, for that matter, with advanced life saving from the Red Cross, right?
Sure.
So the reality is that those are some things that they argued, the proponents of the amendment argued were not in there. Well, okay, so let's just clarify that language. Paying for abortions with state money, they said it wasn't in there. Well, then how come Planned Parenthood, one of their lawsuits right now is to determine whether or not state funds can be spent on abortions? Well, I think it flies in the face of the Hyde Amendment at the federal level. So no matter what our Constitution says, but we need to clarify that, because that only applies to federal funds like Medicaid and things like that. I don't want my state dollars going to perform abortions either. And because I don't care how you feel about it. Some people will say, well, I want my state funds. Well, then let's just agree not to spend state funds on it so we can put that money on
somebody's got to be in control. They have to have adults in Congress.
We need people to vote. That's what we need.
That's true. That's true, but you're getting a lot of outside money coming in. Is that wrong?
No, it's 100% wrong. And in the
It is wrong. They're not having 100 people that are out of state contributing to things like Amendment 3.
Yes, and so on Amendment 3, there was a provision in that very bill that you were talking about, or I'm sorry, not on Amendment 3, on the initiative petition reform. There was a provision in there that limited money to only money in state on initiative petitions in Missouri. Right?
Can you do that?
I don't know why we can't.
I don't know either. I thought I had a conflicting concept from our friend Bill.
No, his legal theory is that that's the free speech restriction, and but at the same time, we don't allow people from Wisconsin to vote in Missouri elections. So I think that that's something that we should challenge, and I would think that the U.S. Supreme Court would be interested in that. Certainly, a free speech thing is I get to go on the public square and speak all I want.
Yeah.
And we have said that includes who I give money to. But for an election that has only to do with what happens inside that jurisdiction, I think a legal argument could be made. Now, keep in mind, I'm only a jailhouse lawyer. Bill is a real lawyer. I'm just a jailhouse lawyer. So
you're a state rep.
My education is a little spotty on the subject. I will admit it. And but the reality is, I think it is something that we need to determine. So,
all right. So, are you happy with Andrew Bailey?
Very happy with Andrew Bailey.
Why did he? I'm happy with that deal with China. Tell him about the China deal.
Okay, so there's been a few, but he sued. Basically sued China and said, you owe us money for the COVID thing.
Right.
And and we won.
Yeah.
And so they said, so some on the other side said, yeah, okay, good. Why don't you go over to China and collect your money?
Yeah. Wait a minute. What was the amount that was?
I don't know.
It was 20,
50 million,
20
200
million,
million,
20 million.
20 million.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Well, my guess would be is that I can probably come up with a few dozen people in Pulaski County that are owed 20 million because of the COVID thing. But as it turns out, they have a few assets right here in Missouri.
That's right.
And so last I heard is that, well, you can either write us a check. By the way, a cashier's check.
Yeah.
We're not taking one on the bank of who won or whatever, right?
Who won?
Yeah.
I don't know who won. I thought it was Z. Didn't he win? Who won? He won? All right.
Okay, you're done.
Thank you.
That was his attempt at humor.
You know why there's no telephone books in China?
Oh my goodness.
Not again.
JP, have we heard this joke before?
Not again.
They're all the wrong number.
Okay. You pay your
do Eddie Murphy. Do Eddie Murphy just for him.
What do you know from funny, you bastard?
You must pay your studio audiences like the Democrats pay their what do you call them things? Town hall meeting participants. So
yeah, I pay them. Why would I pay them?
Well, because they laughed at that joke.
Oh, well, you mean the laughers out there?
They was your studio audience is
when
like
you hire somebody, they're called help. If you're paying them, they're called the help. So if I need help with a joke, they're out there. Now you won't see them because they're in and out.
Well, they are artificial intelligence, and as it turns out, artificial intelligence ain't that smart. So,
that's an interesting point. I'm doing a lot with AI on.
Oh, hey,
Grok.
Yes. Okay, keep going because I'll remember it. But I've got another bill that you guys are going to love.
Okay, all right, but it's Grok, and I'm getting into these arguments about outer space and stuff like an Elon Musk, and stuff like that. It's very interesting.
Okay. So Elon Musk is from outer space? Is that what?
No. There's rumors that he's the left, the far left are saying, the far right are saying Elon Musk is some kind of an avatar that he's been killed, and that he's got two or three avatars. Donald Trump the same. I get these guys that are nuts. Sorry to say, and he's probably listening now. But okay, whatever. Doesn't happen. We were supposed to have a show today, according to this guy, because they were going to close down the world apparently for 10 days. Did you ever hear those things?
Well, and so to prove them wrong, the guy who invented the time machine, which we assume is Elon Musk, some future Elon Musk,
Tesla.
He, in order to prove that wasn't true, then he didn't go back in time and change it, and so you ended up with a show anyway. That's kind of how time travel works, is that we don't want you to find out that we're time traveling, so we're just going to leave the timeline alone so you don't get suspicious, except when it comes to reverse engineering spaceships and things like that.
Well, Tesla, and you're an engineer, right?
Yes, sir.
The guy's name, what was his
licensed
first name?
Professional engineer.
Yes, I understand that, and a chicken monger.
Yeah.
What exactly was Tesla's, the real Tesla, huh? Nikolai Tesla. All right.
Yeah.
He allegedly, in papers, played out how a time machine would work.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a lot of people saying that the proof of that is the movie Back to the Future, and the guy that got most of his notes was John.
That was a movie.
John Trump, who they called Doc.
Yeah,
and that in the movie there was a 9 hanging from a clock.
Why?
And two lines of the car running into the outer space, and it was a 9/11 in 1985. So,
now that one's a bit of a stretch.
Maybe.
Can we go back to the bills?
But that
Bill isn't here today, honey.
Hey,
it's done.
I'd like some real content instead of all this
Would
conjecture.
you get to what you want to talk about, for God's sake?
I just want to say real quick.
Yes.
Back to the Future and the subsequent sequels of that were not documentaries, by the way. That was fantasy entertainment, but also called science fiction. Just wanted to point that out. So I have a bill. It's a really fun bill that allows driverless vehicles in Missouri.
Yeah.
Okay. Now people say, "Oh, they gasp." You heard that gasp? Do you have a gasp laugh line? That'll work.
Yeah.
That'll work. That'll pass for a
what?
gasp. Yeah,
we got a bird that says that.
What? So it turns out I went down to Phoenix to take a look at these things, and one of the requirements was that you had to ride one of their cars from the airport to the hotel. I guess I can say their name, can't I? It was called Waymo, and man, was I shocked. I figured this would be some kind of herky-jerky 1960s robot toy kind of a thing. You couldn't tell the differences if I was driving, except that I'm probably a little more aggressive than the Waymo is.
Right.
But yeah, it was amazing how
so what did
good
you do
it was.
while the car was driving you?
So I had some meetings with the company to talk to them about.
Were you there with a wheel, or were you in the back seat, or what?
No. In fact, the way it's programmed is if there's somebody sitting in the driver's seat, that we won't go anywhere. You can sit anywhere else in the car you want. But the one thing I will caution people, if you take advantage of it, don't shut the door until you got all your luggage out of the car, because once you shut the door, it's on its way somewhere else.
Well, how do you stop it?
Do what?
How do you stop it?
Well, turns out there is a little button that you can hit, a panic button on your phone, but you have to have the app up and running and all that kind of stuff. So one of the suggestions I made to him is that, well, you might want to put a longer delay on that thing so I can get the app open on my phone, and you know how your phone turns off, right? And then also a recall button that, I forgot something in the seat. Cool. Now it does have a sensor everywhere except the trunk, and I don't know why it wouldn't be in the trunk too. But if there's something sitting on the seat, that it won't lock the door. So like if you left your purse or whatever on the seat, it won't lock the door. But the thing about it is you can't reach for the handle because it's a Jaguar.
So this is not a Tesla.
No, it's not a Tesla.
All right.
But it's an electric car.
Speaking of new things, we have somebody waiting to get on.
Oh, okay.
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
And let me introduce him. The first man to challenge big pharma and government with with news from embalmers finding white fibrous blood clots causing deaths of millions in the United States and around the world. Please welcome, all the way from Ohio, Tom Haviland. Hi, Tom. I'm here with JP. I'm here with my wife, Lisa. And I'm here with a all-knowing state representative, Don Mayhew.
Well, nice to meet you all. I've met all of you before, except for Don. And Don, you may not have seen what I've shown Dave and JP and Lisa before.
I don't know if it's what you have, but I've seen these videos before. In fact, there was somebody, and it might have been you, who had put this collection of these things from the coroners. Yeah, exactly. And then them actually videotaping them taking this out of people's veins.
Fibrous.
You got it right. And they're not only being taken out of corpses, actually, they're being taken out of living people as well. What's called cath labs. Here's an even more spectacular one. Take a look at this one, gang.
Oh my God.
This is about 5.5 inches long and about 1/2 inch wide. It was taken out of the abdominal aorta. It's one of the largest blood vessels in the body. So these things are really deadly. They're causing strokes and heart attacks.
Yeah.
And what's unfortunate is in my latest survey that completed in December, 83% of the embalmers responding, 250 of the 301 embalmers responding, are still seeing these white fibrous clots in a shocking 27% of their corpses, Don. These things are not rare. These things are quite prevalent.
Yeah.
So I've tried my best to inform the CDC, FDA, and NIH over the years. And I'm so happy now that we have a new regime in there. You know, we've got Bobby Kennedy now at HHS, Jay Bhattacharya at NIH, Dr. Marty Macri at FDA.
And hopefully Jeff Zink's getting on board with who's coming on next, by the way.
Well, then it was Anthony Fauci's wife was still working at NIH. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, did you see where Bobby Kennedy actually, he's paring down the number of people working under the HHS from, I think, about 80,000 employees down to 60,000. I think 10,000 of them voluntarily retired, and he's firing another 10,000. So he's taking it down by about 25%. You know, and this is an indication. A lot of people think that, okay, the leaders may have been corrupt at these organizations, but maybe the people at the lower levels were good. Well, I'm not cutting the people at the lower levels that much slack because
who hired them?
Exactly. And they still have the opportunity to speak up. You know, when I was at Air Force, I was a defense contractor working at Wright Pat Air Force Base, and I had 4 or 5 levels of bosses above me. And I still spoke up and said, I'm not going to take the shot when the vaccine mandates came out.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that's not an excuse to say I was just following orders and those people stayed silent. So I'm glad, I'm happy that a lot of them are getting canned because I think we need new people in there with a new vision.
Yeah, the Department of Defense, the number of kids that they subjected to this experimental treatment and ended up causing deaths. I mean, there's so many deaths that by 18-year-old kids having heart attacks during, after getting the shot. They were perfect health, got the shot, and then went out on training regimen and had a heart attack.
You're finding that, correct?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, gentlemen. It's not just these white fibrous clots. It's miscarriages, it's myocarditis, it's nerve damage, turbo cancers. In fact, Dave, every time I look at the literature, every week something new comes out. You know, in the last month since we last talked, and during the month of March, for example, all over the world, papers are coming out, scientific papers. A team of 19 researchers from Germany just published a peer-reviewed study on the 25th of March that links the COVID mRNA vaccines to the onset of cancer and autoimmune disorders like leukemia and brain tumors. And that was published in the Molecular Systems Biology Journal.
This stuff is still banned, though. I mean, YouTube, for example, probably is going to ban this. I don't know.
There's still a suppression in there getting the word out. That's what's crazy about this.
Does that too?
Yeah.
And there are new warnings on big pharma. I think that big pharma is now having to contribute what horrors these shots can give. And I read it somewhere where they're warning about heart attacks and and brain damage and all sorts of things.
Yeah, remember what happened?
It's a little too late.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's too little too late because 5.5 billion people on the planet took at least one of these jabs, and they took a total of 13 billion with the B jabs, about 2.5 per person. So it's a little late now to be talking about safety problems after the people have already been injected. You can't take it out.
Are we talking about we're talking about an artificially made disease, basically, done in a Wuhan lab, right?
Yeah.
And we've got people all over the world taking this. Is this a conspiracy? Is there a conspiracy of people that did this for the reason of lowering the amount of people in the world? Is it that?
We can't say for sure. We can't say for sure, but there are indications. It appears that first of all, the Americans, the Russians, and the Chinese have been working on bioweapons research for decades.
Yeah.
The Soviets, for example, were actually looking very closely at blood clotting agents. So it's not a surprise that maybe SARS-CoV-2 has some inserted, engineered Russian what they call open reading frames. It's called ORF for short, an open reading frame that was intentionally inserted into the virus to give it blood clotting capabilities. There's also open reading frames that can code for to avoid the immune system, to evade the immune system, also to make the virus replicate faster. And it appears from some research that's been done that this may have been what happened, that actually this virus was engineered and these special ORFs, open reading frames, were inserted into the virus to make it replicate faster, evade the immune system better, and also actually promote blood clotting and other problems. So this and the problem with that, Dave, is we think that maybe those same nefarious open reading frames got into the vaccines as well.
So the everyone's heard of Hanlon's razor, where it says never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity. Well, I've changed that slightly. It says never attribute to a conspiracy what can easily be explained by good lobbying. And this is what we experience at the federal level. For the first time in history, the amount of money spent on lobbying in Washington, D.C., whenever Pfizer and the rest of them were excluded from being sued over this thing, and then all the money that went into it subsequently, the money that Big Pharma was spending up in Washington, D.C. exceeded the amount of money spent on defense-related things.
Yeah, I believe that.
And that's never happened before. And I forget the number exactly, but I'll just exaggerate for effect.
Well, let's
it was
go
like
back
4
to
times that.
Yeah, the population thing you mentioned, let's talk a little bit more about that because, first of all, in highly vaccinated countries that were COVID vaccinated, we've seen an average of about 10% plus excess mortality over the last 4 years since 2021. Now, interestingly, in countries in Africa, which have very low uptakes of the jab, they have no problems with excess mortality the last 4 years.
And hydroxychloroquine they took regularly.
Exactly. Well, and that could help too. Yes. And what's interesting is just recently I went ahead and I did some research in my own local Ohio area in terms of looking at county coroner's reports. And your audience may want to do this for themselves. Maybe go out on the web and take a look at your particular county and see what the county coroner reports were for the last 10 years. In my own county of Greene County, Ohio, for example, I looked from 2015 through 2024 at the county coroner reports, the annual reports. And I wanted the years 2015 through 2019, pre-pandemic, to kind of get an average of the number of people that died in my county per year. And it was about 1,100 people per year died in my county of Greene County per year. But starting in 2020, with the year that we had the COVID but no vaccines yet, that jumped up to about 1,500. And it has stayed at 1,500 since that time, all the way through 2024. So that's an increase of about 33%. from a jump from 1,100 to 1,500 dying a year. Now, if the vaccines were working well, then maybe the first year of COVID, you would have seen an increase before the vaccines came out. Then that number should have dropped way back down to the 1,100 again.
Sure.
So I also then went to another county, Cuyahoga County, which in Ohio, which encompasses Cleveland, Ohio, with a population of about 1.3 million people. And they've every year from 2015 through 2019 had an average of about 14,000 people dying in their county per year. And starting in 2020, it jumped to 16,000. It was about a 15% rise. Stayed 16,000 in 2021. But then suspiciously, there's no more coroner reports for 2022, 2023, and 2024 on their website. Wow. What do you think happened there? I think that they saw the bad writing on the wall, that the vaccines are causing deaths, a tremendous rise in deaths in their county, and they've stopped reporting them. So right. I encourage your audience to go look at your own particular county websites and see what you find out from your coroner's reports, and see if you see an increase in deaths starting in 2020 and 2021 going forward.
Yeah, I'm accepting that explanation that there's something wrong. What I'm trying to get at is, was this preconceived based on theories like the Montague, I think it's Montague in 1798, where he said there's too many people on the earth and we don't have enough food to take care of them.
That was Thomas Malthus, as you're talking about. Yeah, and we know that Bill Gates and the Rockefellers, a lot of people, Klaus Schwab,
with a lot of power,
into this Malthusian ethics. They're into this. There's too many people, not enough resources, and there's a hint that they want to get rid of the population. Us, the peons, right?
Not them. They ain't taking it.
But there's another good old-fashioned motive as well, right, Dave? Money, right? These drug companies are making hundreds of billions of dollars on this.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so that, and it was kind of like Handler's Razor in that regard. Is that it's less about some wide conspiracy that says we need to kill off 15% of the people. That was just the side benefit, so to speak. It was really about money and not caring whether or not it killed people. And so it's Eisenhower's military-industrial complex. We manufacture weapons, but the only way we can build more weapons is if we use them, and using them requires someone to die. Yeah. Now, we found out through peace that we can keep buying these weapons, but sooner or later we run out of warehouses to store them. So what was our option at that point? Our option was to go use these weapons on somebody, like the poor folks in Ukraine and Russia right now, something that should have been solved with diplomacy, and has been in the past. But guess what? We wouldn't have been able to sell all of our missiles and rockets and everything. Yeah. Right. And so
people may say to themselves, well, I'm not seeing a lot of depopulation, a lot of death and dying. But remember, it's subtle at the individual level. We're a country of 300 million people, and typically about 1 out of 100 of us, 3 million die every year.
Right.
Well, 10% excess mortality would be 10% of 3 million would be 300,000 extra Americans dying a year. That's a lot of Americans dying.
Yeah.
But at the individual level, you may see 11 people die this year as opposed to 10 dying last year. That's an increase of 10%. But are you really going to notice 11 people dying versus 10 last year? Probably not. That's why it's so subtle at the individual level. We don't notice it. But then when you aggregate it to mass populations like the entire country, that's 300,000 extra Americans dying every year. That's what's been happening the last 4 years. It's happening kind of, in secret.
Yeah.
Even though it's such a large number.
Well, here in Missouri, we don't require an autopsy on every person who dies. And typically our coroners are not trained medical examiners anyway. They're EMTs who this is a side job for them or something else. And that would be actually unusual, because a lot of times it's your local funeral home director who is also your county coroner. So there's a lot of the deaths that you've identified that maybe had a different cause other than this, or the causal factor was this fibrous thing that you're talking about. But we will never discover that because that person was not subjected to even a rudimentary.
Not in Missouri, you're not. Apparently in Ohio, they're required to do that, except for that one that cheated and didn't do it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Don. That's a good observation. I actually called the county coroner for the county of Medina, Ohio, talked to her. First of all, she only has a budget to do just a couple of autopsies a month. So she said, I got to save them for, stab wounds and gunshot wounds and things where I'm considering foul play or maybe a person overdosed and you have to check for toxicology. And a lot of these medical examiners, when they do autopsies, what they're doing very few of these days, when they do them, they'll take a close look at the organs, the liver, spleen, the heart, for example, but they won't take a very good close look at the vascular system. So you're absolutely right. It's the embalmers that are actually finding the white fibrous clots because the medical examiners are missing them. So but the other people that actually see them, of course, are vascular surgeons and people that work in what's called cath labs. Last year in March, I was contacted by an endovascular specialist and cardiologist from Jacksonville, Florida, who said he's been removing these same white fibrous clots out of living people for the last 4 years.
Living people?
A month later, I got an email from him, Dave, that said, I've been instructed to terminate communications with you immediately. Sorry for the inconvenience. Somebody got to him above the hospital and told him to stop it. Don't report it.
So there's a conspiracy to kill more people still.
And there's people afraid to speak out about it because they're afraid of losing their jobs. I get it. This endovascular specialist, he's in his mid-40s. He's got a wife and 3 young kids. He's probably paying off a whole bunch of his medical school loans. The last thing he wants to do is get fired for saying, hey, the vaccines are causing...
People telling him to do this? Who's the top guys that are telling people to do this? Why did the Biden administration want all the schools shut down, want all the businesses to shut down, wanted people to live at home and not go out, wanted them to wear 2 masks at a time? Why all that stuff? And who wanted that? Who were the people initiating this conspiracy?
Well, initially in 2020, it probably was done so they could do mail-in voting and they could win their election, because that's one of the few ways they knew they could win was to get mail-in voting. After that, I think it was just a thing about compliance. They wanted to see how compliant we would be as a society, how much we would obey the orders from our superiors, our elites. That's where I tell people, do not comply. I say, you're an American citizen, stand up for your rights, stand up for your medical freedom. Tell them next time, I'm not going to stick this on my arm.
Is there something in the Constitution that says the government can tell you, can take over your life and tell you to stay home, wear masks?
No.
Anything?
They're supposed to protect our rights. They're not supposed to they're not supposed to tell us what our rights are. Our rights are already God-given, Dave. You know that.
Sure.
And they're put in office to protect those rights. That's the sole thing that they're supposed to do in office, is protect the rights of the American citizens.
Of course, then you have special people who are out there in the entertainment world, some who say, how dare you not take the shot? Because you're putting everyone else in danger. And what about that mask you're supposed to be wearing? And that's the
interesting argument that you're taking a vaccination so you can't get the disease, but I'm putting you in danger if I don't take it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. The logic doesn't flow, does it, Don?
That's what they're doing.
But you know what? The good news is, gentlemen, is that the people, they're embarrassed now. Almost everybody stopped taking the shots. I think the shot uptake now of the COVID vaccine is down around 10 to 15%. So 85% to 90% of Americans get it. They've either never taken the jabs or they stopped taking the jabs. They realized that they didn't stop you from catching COVID or transmitting it. They're also realizing now about these nasty side effects. Like I said, this is just one of them. We've got miscarriages, turbo cancers, nerve damage, myocarditis, all kinds of havoc from these things. And speaking of the blood clots, I've got kind of a serious issue here now. I've been in touch with a scientific team around the world. Richard Hirschman, the embalmer from the Died Suddenly film, is supplying these white fibrous clots to laboratories all over the world, and they're checking the white fibrous clots to see how they are made, why they're forming, and also what materials they're made of. And we've definitely confirmed that they're made of amyloid protein, AMYLOID, which is just a fancy term for a misshaped or misfolded protein. But that's serious because that misfolded protein becomes difficult for our natural enzyme plasmin to break down in the body. That's why these clots are real tough and rubbery, and they persist instead of being broken down by our natural enzyme plasmin, which breaks down normal grape jelly clots. But we've discovered something even more shocking recently. There appears to be the presence of what's called prions in these. That's a particular subset of amyloid material. Again, a misfolded protein that can be infectious, contagious. It's associated with neurological diseases like Alzheimer's, mad cow disease, dementia. So we're worried that if these white fibrous clots are indeed contagious, think about it. All these embalmers have been handling these clots. Yeah. The blood that's drained off the corpse is going down the drain. These people that have taken the vaccines have donated blood that are in our national blood supply, American Red Cross. Vascular surgeons in their cath labs and operating rooms have been working on people that may have this prionic material in them. We could be looking at a disaster. Now, we're not positive about it, but there's a test that's been done by a scientist. It's called an RT-QuIC test, and it shows the presence of prion material. And in this case, we've had 3 of the clots tested, and all 3 of them have confirmed presence of prion.
Wow.
So that's a chronic wasting disease in our deer here in Missouri. And it survives after the death of the deer in the soil, and that's how it's transmitted. Is that deer they pick it up from grass and what have you, and then it's nose to nose touching between deer, and it spreads on through the population. But it is a prion, also.
And that's why you can't have a stack of corn things and feed it just to the same deer because they get sick from it, right?
I don't know about the association of corn with prions, but
But Dave kind of makes a good example there. You think about a barrel of apples, and it just takes one bad apple to spoil the bunch. That's what these prions do. They actually infect good proteins around them and then spread and turn them into misfolded proteins.
JP is dying to get in this.
Well, no.
Yeah,
so
JP.
Just a couple of quick points. We even had in our local county, which is Phelps right here in Middle Missouri, our former coroner who just retired came out, I think about a year ago, and said his last couple years as a coroner, which was right when the heat of the vaccines was going, he was not allowed to write on a report that there was a death related to the vaccine. It had to be labeled as something else. And that's something that has come out since then. And I want to go back to the Bill Gates thing because there's more here. Why is Bill Gates talking about healthcare matters? He is a computer guy. He's IT. Yet he's doing all this talk about where we're looking into medical stuff. And he actually said, it's on a recording, maybe they've taken it down since then, but he actually said the words, we're worried about population, and mentioned population control, and then said, our hope is that through vaccinations, we can decrease the world population. He said the word decrease, not increase, because of that concern with population. Well, Bill Gates, how did he make the majority of his fortune? Yes, he made some software through Microsoft, and he made probably millions or billions on it. How he made the most of his money was he created a computer virus, then created the anti-virus software that you had to purchase, and then let the virus out, and then told people, I have the solution, but you got to pay for it. Does that sound familiar?
Interesting.
Yeah.
You got to pay for it.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good
I'm
point,
really
G.
concerned about my fellow man.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. I have a question.
Not only Bill Gates, Larry Ellison, remember when Trump first got reelected, he came out, he's the CEO of Oracle, talked about, and what's he have to do with vaccines? But he's starting to talk about mRNA vaccines to cure cancer. Remember, in the next 5 to 10 years. So, like you say, we've got these tech giants, people that have no medical background whatsoever, talking about medical issues like this. It's bizarre, isn't it? It's really weird.
Terribly bizarre.
When I find out about
is there any sign that there's a cure for this? Is there any sign that if you took a shot 5 years ago, that you're safe at some point?
Yeah, Dave, people that have taken the jabs and maybe think they might start having symptoms, they can take the Dr. Peter McCullough protocol of nattokinase, bromelain, and curcumin to actually help clear the body of the spike protein. That's what's doing all the damage, is the spike protein, even from the virus itself. Remember, there was a spike protein on the surface of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, the COVID virus. But then there's also much more of the spike protein that's produced by the mRNA vaccines, which seem to have no off switch. This is the problem here. There's been a recent study that came out that said it showed the spike protein being produced over 700 days after the person took their last shot. Now, that mRNA was supposed to leave your body in 2 days to a week, but we think it's set up shop maybe permanently in people. So they may have to go on, like I said, nattokinase bromelain curcumin to help stop the production of the spike protein, clear the body of, detox the body basically of the spike protein, and then keep it from doing all the damage that's now. Once these clots have formed, we've found nothing yet that can break them down. That's why these doctors have to go in, vascular surgeons, cath lab workers, with flexible catheters that either scrape the clot out, they suck it out, or they lasso it and pull it out. Because the traditional clot busting drugs like tissue plasminogen activator called TPA works terrifically against the grape jelly clots, doesn't work at all against these white fibrous clots.
You got Andrea Schrum. The schools were shut down by the Department of Education. They are still promoting them on TV commercials. I go to the local CVS. They're still giving people shots.
Yeah.
Christopher Razzini, COVID and community standards was a test run for population control martial law. Remember, President Obama signed into the law that the president can evoke martial law without congressional approval.
Yeah, and what he's alluding to there is we're still under the what's called the PrEP Act. And actually, Joe Biden, one of the very last things he did before he left office was to extend that PrEP Act and the emergency use authorization for these vaccines until 2029, after Trump leaves office. So he's trying to handcuff Trump and Bobby Kennedy in terms of trying to reverse that and get these things, take down the PrEP Act and get these things off the shelves.
Interesting. I don't think he knows he signed it. They're going to get rid of all his parts.
It was probably signed with auto pen.
AI auto pen. Yeah, it did it by itself. All righty.
I hate to leave good company, but I've got to get to another meeting. It was great meeting you.
What will we do without you? You've been
the jokes will definitely go down in quality now that I'm leaving. So apologize for that in advance to all those.
Well, you're the joke, and obviously we're not going to go down in quality.
Well, it's I'm taking the thinking men with me and women. I do it that way.
Yeah, we're gaining. We're actually gaining people since he came on. I don't know.
You. Don, I will ask you to please stand up for the medical freedom. I know you will. You'll stand up for the medical freedom of all your citizens that you represent.
Well,
we're in a battle.
There's more to do with this. I mean, there's first of all, you mentioned the blood draining into common areas and the fact that this deer will die and pass it on to other deer, and that needs to be addressed, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, and so there's a lot of research to be done, and the only way we're going to get to that is those folks like you sounding the alarm on the things that are the side effects from this. And let's face it, folks, we've got a short window of opportunity before this thing flips back over on us. And so we have to take advantage of the regulatory state that we've got now. Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Don.
Mayhew.
Thank you for the egg.
All right. You're not yelling about it now? All right. They're all gone. They left. All right. Shortly, I think we're going to have Jeff Zink on, who I know. Have you been in contact with him at all?
I have. After our last time we spoke, you introduced me to Jeff. On the last time I appeared on your show, Jeff was on too, and we chit-chatted about his potential being put in a position in RFK Jr.'s administration. I'd like to find out if that happened or not. If it did,
I don't think it's happened as of Monday when I got him on the show. Or Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday, I forget. But I think he's still in. What?
Yeah, when I texted Jeff either Tuesday or Wednesday and said, any update on your job, he said, not yet. But as far as I know, I think he still believes it's going to happen. It just has not come to fruition yet. So.
Yeah.
Now, I have been sending emails to RFK Jr. and Jay Bhattacharya and all the people that are in our movement. So no response yet, but I know he's awfully busy right now. It's his first month and a half in office. Yeah. And Jay just got in the chair, I think, this last week. He, Bhattacharya and Dr. Marty McCary just got confirmed about a week ago.
Yeah, I'm going to give him the what do you call these? Popsicle. Sucker. It's a sucker.
It's a dum-dum.
It's a dum-dum.
Dave, are you calling me a dum-dum?
No, that was Lisa. She said that. How did she know about funny? She
reading the label
about funny. All right. So there's no. So there's. I'd like to focus on the cure and the future, on what we're going to do, and what happens when you have a kid, a teenager, who took the shot because he wanted to go to a country or something like that, like to Israel, or take a trip on a cruise, who has been forced to take the shot. Of course, they didn't have to do it, but what happens to them when they come to trying to have babies?
Dave, let me read to you. What I did this last year is I tried to do a survey with vascular surgeons across the world, in the United States, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand. And I sent them a survey, just like I did the 3 surveys I did for the embalmers. But that survey was more important because I could actually ask these vascular surgeons about COVID vaccines, because unlike the embalmers, they do have access to the COVID vaccination records of all their patients. But would you believe that none of them wanted to take the survey? The only one I got a response from was from the U.S. Society for Vascular Surgery. It's headquartered in Rosemont, Illinois. They brag about having over 6,300 members, and they refused to take the survey, which is just so sad.
Yeah.
So what I did then is I ran a people's blood clot survey. I said, well, if I can't get good information from the doctor in, I'll run a survey at the patient in. Well, Dr. John Campbell, who runs a big channel over in the UK, on YouTube, and then also Clayton Morris and his wife Natalie do the show Redacted News. I was on both of their shows, and they showed a QR code to a survey that people could take who've either had blood clotting problems since January of 2020 going forward. And I got over 1,400 responses, Dave, in just 2 weeks. So the patients are happy to tell you about their blood clotting experience, but I couldn't get not a peep out of the doctors.
Well, we got to change that, and I think we got a guy here who can help with that. He's a kinesiologist, Division I football player, then Division I referee in basketball, soon to be HHS something. We don't know exactly what it's going to be. Then convicted by same judge as we're seeing in the news right now, Judge Boasberg, and they are fighting back. Please welcome Jeff Zink. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How you doing, Dave? Hi, Tom. How you doing?
Good to see you again, Jeff. Dave and I were we were just talking about the shots and the effects on people. I was telling Dave I've been running I ran late last year, a people's blood clot survey. Let me read to you, gentlemen, a couple of the inputs we got. Of those 1,400 people that responded, at the end of the survey, we allowed a comments block where they could, write in about their particular situation. Well, over 1,100 of the 1,400 actually responded and wrote something in. Let me read to you this so you guys get an idea of the kind of damage that's going on around the country. Here's one. My mother had 3 COVID vaccines, all Pfizer vaccines. She was healthy and had a stroke and coded in the hospital and died within 5 days. The funeral director is a good friend of the family's and informed us and showed us the white fibrous clots that were throughout her body. He told us they were seeing lots of these clots while embalming. Here's another one. My mother never had clotting issues before this incident. Then only 2 weeks after receiving the COVID shot, she was taken to the ER for multiple clots that developed in the same arm she received the COVID shot. Here's one from a surgical nurse inside the hospitals. Surgical nurse seeing a huge increase in clots. We are doing more amputations than I've seen in my whole career. I'm definitely seeing the clots you were describing. When I say it's probably due to the COVID shot, everyone ignores me and there is silence in the operating room. I also hear the surgeon saying, I've never seen anything like this before. Also, during heart surgeries, The surgeons are having a difficult time suturing as the tissues are just falling apart. Once again, the surgeons are saying, I've never seen anything like this before. A lot of patients are dying. Let me read to you just one more, and then I'll let you gentlemen comment on this.
Okay.
I was feeling fine. Had pain left side below shoulder blade. Started sweating and feeling weak. Called the ambulance. ECG did not show heart attack. Rushed to emergency. ECG did not show heart attack. Third different emergency. Doctor did ECG and ultrasound. They were all perplexed. A cardiologist was called. I was sent to a heart institute. Arriving there, I went into cardiac arrest. Was out 2 minutes. 3 sets of compressions and 4 defibrillator shocks were used. They went in through an artery at the wrist. They removed fibrous clot. They did not want to tell me, but a nurse whispered to me, it's the vaccine. We have so many. Follow-up appointment with a cardiologist. I asked the question directly. The doctor looked down and said, I cannot talk about it at the risk of losing my job. What do you think about that, gentlemen?
Well, I'll let my friend here, Jeff, answer that. But I'd also like to know when he's going to join up with officially with Mr. Kennedy.
Well, to answer your question, Tom, that's something that once in HHS, we are going to investigate. We're going to take a look at directly the correlation as to the timing from the vaccine to when these clots started. What was the history prior to the patient? All of those things are going to be brought into play, and we're going to take a close look at it. To Dave's question and everything, yesterday had a wonderful conversation with Peter Tickton, who is getting in contact with Sergio Gore, and he now has my name, phone number, and email address. We're going to be moving forward. I don't know if you've, I was, one of the reasons why I was kind of a little bit late, I got an article that I was trying to send JP before I came on, but I just couldn't get it sent to you fast enough, which basically is stating it's by Axios, and it's regarding the deputy chief of staff that's currently there, and it's not good. It's not a good situation, and there's some issues and problems that they're now doing. But that is the position that I'm being looked at, and can be, immediately can rectify the issues and problems that we have at HHS the second that I hit the floor running, which I will be. And so, and then I'm working on.
You're still on, right? You're still on.
Jeff, we need you in there. We need you in there desperately because. I was so happy to see, for example, just the other day, Peter Marks, who was the director of the Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research, he resigned. Thank God. That's the gentleman. Back when I had my first survey done, I sent immediately, in fact, all 3 years I've had the surveys done, the embalmer surveys. I've sent the results to the FDA, to their Vaccine and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee, which Marks oversaw. And for the last 3 years, Jeff, I've got crickets from nothing, no response to any of the 3 embalmer surveys I showed with the, shocking results saying that, we're seeing these white fibrous clots, the embalmers are, in 25% of their corpses, 1 out of every 4 corpse. So it's just, it's terrible, the fact that they have not responded, done their own surveys, contacted the, funeral associations around the world, the vascular surgeons, the cath labs, to find out what's going on. They have done nothing over the last 3 years.
Right. And that's been the status quo for the previous administration. And while President Trump is draining the swamp, the problem is that and it's something that I've started phrasing, which is every administration except for Trump is that they don't drain the swamp, they just change the water. And so what we need to do is we need to go in, drain the swamp, get rid of the people that aren't doing their job, aren't doing, wanting to look at realistically what's taking place. And the reason why is that pharmaceutical companies all of a sudden become problematic in the fact that now they're going to be liable. Oh, wait, the Congress passed a law that says that they can't be held accountable. So we need to go back and we need to reverse that. We need to sit down and start showing that if you do this, okay, and it's in trials, well, the person that's in the trials understands the risk and stuff, and we can do that. But the way that the vaccines was brought on to the population and everything, and the correlations that we have where you're having deaths within hours and days of having that vaccine, that's a huge problem. And it's something that we need to take a look at and make sure. The thing is that we've got to come out and we have to use real science, not just political science, and that's, I think it's always interesting that they have political science and stuff. Well, that's what's being used, but yet that's not medical science. That's not the chemistry and the physiology and the understanding of how chemicals are introduced into the body, what takes place. We now have come out and stated that the vaccine has the spike protein. That spike protein had mRNA, which alters the DNA of the individual, which then has created issues and problems. We do know that vaccines have mercury and has aluminum as binding agents for the molecules in order for them to bind the COVID and SARS virus together, along with a portion of the HIV virus. Yes, you heard me right. The HIV virus. All of these things need to be looked at very closely and studied to see, was this a weaponization of a vaccine against the population? And that's what's more important. We gotta get to the bottom of that.
Yeah, and Jeff, when I was on earlier before you came on, I was talking about that very thing with Dave, and I'm in touch myself and embalmer Richard Hirschman, who's supplying these clots to labs all over the world. We're in touch with a scientific team that's doing just what you're talking about. They're doing scientific tests to prove that the clots not only contain misfolded proteins called amyloids, but that a subset of those may be prionic in nature, actually infectious. And that could cause a whole host of problems, with blood going down the drain in embalmer rooms, people having surgeries in operating rooms, the blood supply of COVID vaccinated people are donating blood, the blood supply could be tainted. These scientists are doing multiple tests. They're doing tests like what's called ICP-MS, that's inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometry analysis. They've done what's called high performance liquid chromatography analysis. They've done thioflavin T testing on the clots. And then most recently, to detect the prion nature, they've done something called RT-QuIC analysis on the clots as well. So I've got all that information that I can supply to you to get to the proper people in the government to say, hey, and so then an FDA team, a CDC team, universities around the world could replicate these same types of tests on the clots themselves. Believe me, there's plenty of samples to supply. No problem. Richard Hirschman's happy to give samples. He's got plenty of them to labs all over the world. And what they can do then is conduct their own test, either verify the results of the scientific team we're in contact with or refute them, but the science, like you said, the real science needs to be done.
Well, I agree.
You've got this is exactly what I wanted to say, because this is so important. It creates a whole new episode of what's going on here because of the drains of bodies going into the earth, and possibly deer dying and passing it on as they're eating stuff that might be infected. You're talking now a whole different category.
You're right, Dave. It means that people that didn't even take the shots, may be in danger.
That's right.
In fact, I was at a conference this last weekend, and I was talking with Dr. Pierre Corey, He's a very famous doctor. He was the one that really stood up for ivermectin in terms of ivermectin being used. And his medical partner, Dr. Scott Marsland, has been talking for some time about the process of shedding, how people that have taken the vaccine can actually shed the vaccine on unvaccinated persons. And through their exosomes in their breath, not just sweat and bodily fluids, but also in your breath, you can pass the lipid nanoparticles, the mRNA, and potentially these prions to other people that have never taken the vaccine. So we may have a very dangerous situation going on here. And that's exactly why this should have been looked at 4 years ago when these clots were first brought about. But our regulatory agencies were remiss in doing so. And in doing so, they've done humanity a big disservice. Now we're behind the 8 ball, 4 years into this, and we may have a disaster unfolding. And what happens is it unfolds slowly. For example, Alzheimer's takes years and years for the amyloid to build up to the point where it gives the person, they die of Alzheimer's and they start suffering from dementia. What we may start seeing here the next 5 to 10, 15 years is younger people who have been vaccine injured that have this prionic thing going on with them with the white fibrous clots, contributing also to these neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, mad cow disease. And we could start seeing much more of these phenomenon in the next 5, 10, 15 years in an accelerated format.
Okay, I have a question quickly. Now you're talking about infectious drugs in not necessarily by the shot, but other things, breath, for example. What about, has there been studies of all the other vaccines that we've had ever?
Vaccines in the past have shed before, Dave, but there's never been any. But those were all to combat natural viruses. This is the first time that we've ever had to come out with a vaccine to combat a man-made virus. With, like I said, we talked earlier about maybe nefarious open reading frames put in them to actually make the virus replicate faster, evade the immune system better, actually promote blood clotting. That's how sinister this is. So
I'm saying, did the other ones do that? Did the other ones not do that?
The other
studies been made about that.
There have been other vaccines in the past that have shed on people. So this isn't, the shedding is not a new phenomenon.
So how do we get rid of that?
I don't think you can. Like I said, the only thing you can do is, as we talked earlier, is to reduce the spike protein in your own body by taking things like nattokinase, bromelain, curcumin, which Peter McCullough says he'll be the first one to tell you there's been no randomized control trial to prove that works. But he just tells you that in the patients he's working with, he has seen improvement using those products and helping those patients to detox themselves of the spike protein. In fact, right now, there are tests out there that people like Dr. Pierre Corey and his medical partner Scott Marsland in their practice, and also Dr. Jordan Vaughn in Birmingham, Alabama, people can take what's a test to check their spike protein levels, actually the level of antibodies responding to the spike protein. And in the test that Dr. Corey does, when somebody's taken the vaccine, they can have a spike protein level as high as 25,000, which is the topping out point of that particular test. Now, he says he also has patients that have been, they think, injured by vaccine, not vaccine injured, but just damage from COVID itself. And they're unvaccinated patients, actually. But he sees a lot lower amount of spike protein antibodies in those people. And their symptoms typically are a lot less severe than those that have taken the shots. So that's not a surprise to me because, like I said, it's harder for the infection to produce a lot of spike protein inside a person's body. It's much easier for the vaccine to produce a lot more of the spike protein and continue to do it, indefinitely. So, and by the way, the more shots you take, probably the worse the problem is too. So if you've taken a couple of shots, don't take any more. If you've taken 3, don't take 4. If you're taking 4, don't take 5, because there appears to be a cumulative effect. You're reloading the gun every time you take another booster. You're putting more mRNA in yourself, producing more spike protein that's adding on top of what you already have.
On another subject, I have to thank publicly Jeff Zink, who went out of his way right after the tornadoes here that we had on Saturday morning of the Friday night tornadoes that he went and found some FEMA and says, we got a problem here in Missouri. And he did a great job of finding people. The guys that are telling me this are the guys in the electric deals, the guys that are cleaning it up and things like that. So thank you so much from Missouri to Jeff Zink. He's a good guy. Yeah. Okay, continue, please.
Go ahead, Jeff. I'll take it. Yeah. Talk, Jeff.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I mean, it was just a phone call, and they immediately jumped on it, and that has to do with the new administration, Donald Trump administration, with FEMA and what he's trying to do and put things together, and trying to show the American people that we do have a government that cares. And so the thing that is very interesting is that last weekend I actually got to meet Ben Carson and Peter McCullough both, and spoke with them and had just a few minutes with them. They were speaking at an event here in Phoenix that I was very fortunate to be aware of, and so was able to go to the green room and speak with them. And one of the things that Peter talked about is the fact that he doesn't want to jump the gun, kind of like what our vaccines, they jumped the gun and said, well, let's just take it and see what happens. It's the Nancy Pelosi approach. Yeah. And the thing is that he's saying that what he's putting together and what he's trying to do to combat the vaccines and trying to clear the system and do that, he said, we're doing it case by case, but he said all of the things that are involved have already been proven safe and effective, so that even if it doesn't turn out to be what he wanted, it doesn't harm the individual, which goes back to the oath that all of us in the healthcare system take, which is to do no harm. And so that is what's going on. And for him to lose his license because he came out against the vaccine and everything, it's now been reinstated, and he's now practicing medicine again. But the fact is that what I want to do is I want it to be just like every other person, buyer beware, well, patient beware. If you want to go to a physical therapist, if you want to go to an orthopedic surgeon, if you want to go to a general practitioner, if you want to go to a naturopath, you should be allowed to go to that individual and use the type of diagnosis and treatment that they prescribe. The thing is that it's kind of interesting. If somebody goes to a physical therapist, they get rehab. If they go to an orthopedic surgeon, they get surgery. So if you don't feel like that you need surgery, then why are you going to a surgeon? Yet general practitioners refer to surgeons all the time if it's outside their scope. And we may have other alternatives, and we need to be able to triage these individuals so that we tailor make that specifically to that individual. And then another issue is I've been working with the company that is putting together an insurance policy, and we're going to be we've already rolled it out. It's already operational and functioning, and it will replace Obamacare. And it literally puts a challenge to the other insurance companies that if you don't conform to what we're doing, because we can walk into any employer, all right, and we can say, not only will we take the 2% that is driving your medical costs up, but and we can put them in, but the others, what we will do is we can also triage them and tell you what their precursors are. So we can tell you, Dave, if you are a precursor for prostate cancer or lung cancer or heart or liver or any of these other types of things, we can take a look and see through your blood and utilize this. And then what we can do is we can use AI with your DNA structure and it will then go through all of the medical drugs that are out there and available, and it weeds out the ones that won't do anything for you. Those that are contraindicated, it weeds those out. And then those that are resistive, it weeds that out. And the only thing that is left are things that will literally take care of things like cancer, diabetes, start doing things that will help the individual and stuff. And so we can actually start tailor making this for the individual and helping them. And so these are the things that when I get there, I'm going to be pushing and putting together so that we can make America healthy again, and we make sure that we treat the body, because our body is not only just the physical body, but it's the soul itself and the spirit. See, we're made in the image of God. And so we have a Trinity that sets and resides within us. Why aren't we treating all three? And why are we not calling the great physician, the one who created us? And the thing is that people say, well, you've got the gift of healing. No, I'm an empty vessel that allows God to put his hands in my hands, and he's the one who does the healing. Well, these are all things that we need to do. We need to bring Christ and introduce these people to him, because then all of a sudden we don't have transgender. We don't have the mental illness. We don't have some of the things that are going on that are attributing to some of the issues and problems that we have. So it's just a broad stroke, but we have an opportunity right now in the history of America to do something that will alter and change how America health will be affected over the next 100 years. What a great opportunity we have in order to actually bring true science and do things. And we bring all three aspects of the mind, body, and spirit together,
Jeff,
and working people.
Jeff, I love what you said about the power of the individual, because a person should be able to decide, for example, if they have cancer, whether or not they just want to do natural therapies, or maybe they want to do natural therapies in combination with chemo, or maybe they want to do, and they don't want to do radiation, or maybe they want to do all three. They should have the option of deciding whether to do just natural or all three of them, or just, any combination of the two. So we need to give that power back to the people.
Right. Okay. Closing.
And that's our sovereign.
Closing thoughts. We're running out of time. We got about 4 minutes left, less than 4 minutes left. Take a minute or so, and let's talk to Tom first, and then you can close it off, Jeff.
Okay. Real quick for me, just if they want to know more about the work I've been doing, they can go to the Substack of my assistant, Laura Kasner. There's at the bottom of the screen, laurakasner.substack.com, or you can email me at thomashaviland@sbcglobal.net. I still love to talk to embalmers, as well as endovascular specialists, cardiologists, vascular surgeons who want to tell me what they're seeing in people's veins and arteries. Would love to hear from you. Go ahead, Jeff.
So one of the things is I'd love for anybody and everybody to, donate to my son's campaign, giftsandgo.com/Ryan Zink. I need to thank Peter Tickton, Sidney Powell, and Mark McCluskey, who are taking on his case, and we're going to be moving that forward. And just Peter and himself picking up the phone and talking to Sergio and doing the things that it's going to take. I'm one of these. I keep having the song "Put Me In, Coach," and that's exactly what I need to do. I need to be put in. I need to get going. But I appreciate everybody in Missouri and what y'all are doing and helping my son.
You want me to call Robert and tell him, hey, come on, can you move this guy forward already?
Well, technically, I'm supposed to meet with him on Monday.
Okay.
Call Bobby.
Mom says, hey, come on. All right. So, hey, listen, guys, that is great stuff, and I appreciate both of you. You're both amazing people. You are doing stuff that everybody hates or hated and now are beginning to understand that you are absolutely right about fixing this problem. We need you guys on that wall. We want you guys on that wall. Please, please, please stay there until it's finished. Thank you.
We'll do, Dave. We'll do.
All right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I got 2 minutes or a minute and a half, I guess. And, just interesting stuff. I don't know what the market's doing today. Is it up, down? I think it's way down again. But
let me read to you one or two more of the.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Here's one says, my daughter died suddenly at age 45 in September 22. She was an athlete and her heart stopped while working out. She was in an emergency room, registered nurse, and mandated to take the bioweapon and all boosters. While on life support, they found a blockage just outside her left ventricle. She suffered severe brain anoxia and was removed from life support. My son-in-law thought my insistence that this was from the bioweapon was complete lunacy. An autopsy was not offered, and she was cremated the next day.
Yeah.
My family has no history of heart issues. My daughter was an active, 100% healthy, clean-eating mother of 5. She was murdered.
You got it. And this is mass murder is what it is, and I don't care what they're talking about pardoning. There is no pardoning of mass murder. That's not allowed from what I've heard.
Let's go get him. Nuremberg 2.0.
Nuremberg 2025.
Amen.
And let's make sure it's Trump 2028 as well as okay?
Or at least JD.
Trump 2028. Are we done? Oh, okay. Well, I guess we're done. Hey, guys, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Great show. Take care. Bye-bye.